The wind knifed past, tossing my hair as I cut through the waking city. I slipped between cars on my bike like a shadow, flip-flops hanging on, half-buttoned shirt snapping, backpack snug against my shoulders. I cracked the throttle. My eyes watered. On impulse, I let the bars go, spread my arms, and shut my eyes for a heartbeat. Pure rush. Pure freedom. I coasted alongside a school bus. Kids stared, pointing. I grabbed the bars, popped a quick wheelie, and blipped the engine. Their cheers bled through the glass. I laughed, dropped the wheel, and called out, "Who doesn't want to go to school?" Me. Me. Then grow up already. School for kids. I shot past, still grinning. Early rides light my whole body on fire. I pushed faster, then slipped off the main road into quieter streets where trees leaned over calm lanes and the city noise fell away. I rolled to a stop outside a two-story house. White walls. Small porch. Garage left, garden right, a stone path to the door. I stretched, checked the side mirror. Green eyes. Brown hair wrecked by the wind. "Nice," I said, hopping off and letting the bike rest at the curb. Cool air. Quiet street. I took a breath, dropped into a squat. I like squats. Always have. Simple and cruel. Squats make kings. Neck crack. Deep breath. Blink away the last of sleep. One slap to the cheek. Awake. Locked in. Today was the day. I rang the bell, whistling. Wish I could time travel. I muttered and rang again. Awakening day. Graduation for the whole city's academies. Our shot to unlock a path. To level up. To get powers. An idea sparked. Backflip? On grass? Why not? I stepped in the yard. Inhaled, sprang. Clean rotation. Solid landing. I clapped for myself, wandered back, and hit the bell again. And again. The door finally swung open. My best friend stood there, white shorts and undershirt, hair a mess, eyes half closed like always. He frowned at me, about 25% intensity. "Yo, good morning." I tapped the bell once more. He sighed. "I hate you, man." My expectations collapsed on cue. "Come on. It's graduation. It's awakening day. Try to look alive. We gotta roll." I slid past him, tossed my bag on the couch, grabbed his shoulders, and stared him down. "Steve, I need you to calm me down. My heart is about to explode. Blood at light speed. Best friend duty. Save me." He went with his specialty. Threats. Billion, one more word or even a twitch, and our friendship ends right now. The look said he meant it. So I froze. That's friendship. He slipped away, footsteps up the stairs. Probably a shower. He pretends he's chill, but I know he's excited too. Who wouldn't be? Today we get powers. Powers. Adrenaline spiked again. I sneaked a glance at the stairs. Clear. I dropped into squats. 1. Focus. People say Steve and I are opposites. I'm dynamite on legs. He's a sleeping mountain. Truth is, he's the bomb, just inside his head. Maybe that is why his eyes are always half closed. Always thinking. 2. What if his power is eye lasers? 3. He opens them all the way and zap. 4. Okay, maybe not the safest idea. 5. Energy kept climbing, not dropping. So I switched to push-ups. Shirt off. Palms down. Work. Push-ups make the man. 15 minutes later, footsteps. I popped back into the exact statue pose he left me in. He took in the scene. Shirt tossed aside. Me, suspiciously composed. He wore his black uniform now. Near 6 feet, blonde hair, blue eyes, round face, permanent low-battery expression. You're 17. Try maturing a little. I rolled my eyes internally and stayed silent. Promise kept. He rubbed his forehead, then smirked. Fine. Go get ready. It's awakening day. I blew past him to the bathroom. 10 minutes later, I faced the mirror. 6'3", taller than Steve. Decent face, sharp jaw. Not that it would matter once I had powers. Shirt straight. Tucked. Ready. All right, I told the guy in glass. Let's see what the future's got. Inside the private auditorium at Avenue Academy, 100 of us packed the open floor. No chairs, just a stage and space to stand. Our slogan hung over it. Man today, soldier tomorrow. Comfort wasn't part of the plan. Fine by me. I never wanted comfort. I wanted action. I shadowboxed in front of Steve's face to kill the wait. The instructor was 15 minutes out, so my fists hovered inches from his nose. Steve watched with his usual half-closed eyes, hands in pockets, not even a blink. I wished one punch had enough wind to ruffle his hair. "Hey, Billion, did you even sleep?" Nick asked. Before I could answer, phone cut in. No chance. He was vibrating all night. "I slept," I said, bending and working shots into Steve's midsection. Air only. Like a rock. Best way to time skip to morning. I kept punching. I just wanted today to start. Steve's gaze slid past me. I followed it. 10 boys drifted our way. Cena in front, Batch bad boy, minions strung behind like ants. I straightened, slid my hands into my pockets, rolled my neck, pushed my chest out, and walked to meet them. Alpha duties. Take the front. Steve fell in beside me. "Control yourself," he murmured. "Don't ruin my day. Unless he throws first." I nodded and locked on Cena. We closed the gap until one step would land a punch. I put us there on purpose. I wanted to hit him. Academy rules said no. He sneered. "Billion, I wish I could rub your face in the dirt and spit on it. Rules save you for one more day. Tomorrow you wash your neck and wait for your king." Who talks like that? We were teenagers with rivalries, not stage villains. What did I do? Beat him in sparring? That's sparring. Maybe I told his girlfriend the truth, and she dumped him. Maybe he got suspended 15 days after trying something with Steve. Actions meet consequences. I leaned in. I read that kings don't follow rules. They make them. So be royal. Ignore the rules and give me a couple of slaps. Laughter bubbled around us. Cena's smirk drooped. "You can laugh now," he said, stepping close, voice low. "Real life starts tomorrow." He leaned to my ear. "Will your old grandmother save you when there are no rules left?" He held my eyes, then turned. His followers threw me a final glare and trailed after him. "Real life, huh?" I muttered. Heat crept to my spine. I pictured his face bouncing off a floor. Steve's hand clamped my shoulder. "Let's go. It's time." I let the anger settle. Tomorrow could carry it. I always needed an outlet. Squats and push-ups weren't enough. A whistle cut the room clean. My legs tensed. Heart hammered. It was starting. Steve and I moved. The crowd opened without thinking. Rank had its rituals. I took the front row. Top of the batch. Steve slid into fourth. 10 rows formed on instinct. On stage, Daniel Strongman stood center, eyes sweeping like a hawk. I snapped to attention, lean sharp about Steve's height. 40, weathered by loss and duty. A decade carving kids into fighters. Respected. Feared. His voice carried. "You know why you're here. Today is graduation. Your last day in this academy. I hope you're ready." "Yes, sir." Silence slapped back. 100 statues. Every head tilted my way. Daniel's gaze pinned me. I met it and dipped my chin a fraction. Not submission. A line in the sand. He liked ghosts and quiet kills. I prefer to be seen and felt before I arrived. We had never agreed on that. He held the stare, then spoke. "Let's begin." His eyes stayed on me. "I will call names. Step into the awakening room behind me when you hear yours." Billion Ironheart. I stepped out. My footsteps echoed. Even my heartbeat sounded loud. I stopped before him, taller by a couple of inches, yet his presence pressed down like weight. "All the best," he said. I nodded and walked past him toward the blue door.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The awakening room was simple 10 by 10, with smooth gray walls, floor, and ceiling. At its center stood a tall mirror, 10 feet high and 3 feet wide, its surface completely blank. I stepped forward, stopping in front of it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the edges of the mirror pulsed with a faint blue glow. Slowly, my reflection began to form, starting from my feet. The glow crawled upward, revealing my legs, torso, and arms until finally, my entire image stared back at me, perfectly reflected. I knew what was coming, and it took every ounce of my self-control to keep my body still and stop myself from shouting in excitement. "Damn it! Can't you hurry up?" My reflection and I locked eyes for a few seconds, and for a brief moment, I swore I saw a smirk on its face. Then, without warning, the image shattered into shimmering blue particles. They hovered in the air, swirling like tiny stars, before surging out of the mirror and straight into my glabella. Boom! Everything went blank in an instant, and I instinctively shut my eyes. When I opened them again, a glowing blue screen hovered right in front of me. I grinned, clenched my fists, and took a deep breath, steadying myself, and scanned screen. Status: Name: Billion Ironheart. Race: Human. Class: Not applicable. Laws: Not applicable. Level: 0. Talent: Generator 1. Essence: 0 out of 5. Attributes: Strength: 8. Constitution: 7. Dexterity: 9. Synapse: 7. Unused stats: 0. What? I rubbed my eyes and looked at the screen again. A talent? Me? I got a talent. No way. No freaking way. A talent? Me? My heart pounded as the realization hit like a thunderclap. I shouted in my head, I have a talent. I took a deep breath and shook my head. All right, calm down, Billion. You have an image to maintain. My eyes locked onto the talent section. I could hardly believe it. In the entire world, only 10 to 12 people were publicly known to possess a talent. Even if the hidden ones were counted, the number wouldn't exceed 30 or 40. And now I was one of them. I exhaled, a slow grin creeping onto my face. I rubbed my chin, my focus locked on the talent displayed before me. Generator I? What kind of talent is that? And the essence is 0/5. The word generator sparked a few thoughts in my mind, but I needed to confirm them first. I decided to check out my talent once I got home. No need to take any risks here. I dismissed the screen and turned toward the door, deciding to step out and let the others have their turn. As soon as I stepped outside, I felt a shift in the air. All eyes were on me. I straightened my posture, shutting the door behind me, scanning the faces around me. I knew exactly what they were thinking. They wanted to know if I had failed to awaken. Too bad for them, I don't fail that often. I caught Daniel's gaze and gave him a nod. His eyes lingered on me for a moment before I passed by him. Descending from the podium, I made my way back to my position. My eyes met Steve's, and I shot him a quick wink, more than enough of a signal to let him know things had gone well. He gave me a small nod in return. With that, I settled into place, and the awakening process continued. I summoned my status screen again, this time focusing on the rest of my stats. Race, class, and laws were all straightforward. Nothing surprising there. Then, my eyes landed on my stats. I had to admit, I was pretty satisfied with what I saw. This was what we had trained for at the academy. Every single one of us had spent years pushing ourselves to reach as close as possible to 10, the peak value before awakening. Still, I did not like two things. Synapse, 7, and my dexterity, still not 10. I had pushed myself relentlessly, sprinting until my legs felt like lead, weaving through obstacle courses at breakneck speeds, reacting to strikes before they even fully formed. Every single day, I drill my reflexes, hone my footwork, force my body to move faster, sharper. I was, without question, the fastest in my batch, by a huge margin. And yet, despite all of it, I hadn't hit the peak. Not yet. Frustrating. I scanned my stats, breaking each one down in my mind. Strength, raw physical power. It determined how much force I could exert lifting, pushing, striking. The higher it was, the harder I hit, the more I could carry, and the more explosive my movements became. Constitution, a fusion of endurance, durability, and recovery. It replaced both vitality and regeneration, measuring how much damage my body could take before breaking, how long I could last in a fight, and how fast I healed. Dexterity, the key to agility, coordination, and balance. It controlled my speed, reflexes, and precision. The higher it was, the sharper my reactions, the smoother my movements, and the faster I could strike or evade. Synapse, mental acuity, reaction speed, memory, and awareness. I exhaled and clenched my fists. Good, but not good enough. I shifted my focus to the class section. The next big step for us was class selection, a defining moment in our growth. Everyone would get to choose their first class upon reaching level 25. And starting tomorrow, that would be our goal. Reach level 25 as soon as possible within the next year. Because after that, we would officially become part of the Empire's army. For this 1 year, we were soldiers on probation, not fully enlisted, but no longer just trainees. Our actions and skills during this period would determine the class choices available to us. In short, this year would decide everything. Then there was the laws section. It wouldn't matter for a long time, not until level 150. That's when I'd have to comprehend natural laws and use them to break past that threshold. For now, my focus was elsewhere. Every level up to level 25 would grant me 5 unallocated stat points, which I could distribute however I wanted. The real challenge was deciding where to put them. I heard Daniel call Steve's name, and my ears perked up. I watched as Steve stepped into the awakening room, curiosity buzzing in my mind. Will he awaken a talent too? If he did, then the two of us together, we'd shake the entire Empire. Moments later, Steve walked out. His eyes met mine immediately. He smirked, lazy, confident, half-lidded. I smiled back. I understood he had awakened. But whether he had a talent like me, that, I'd have to wait to find out. One by one, everyone stepped into the awakening room and completed their awakening. Daniel remained in place, straight-backed, disciplined. A soldier through and through. I watched as my batchmates stepped into the awakening room, one by one. Some emerged with an excited gleam in their eyes, while others walked out with slumped shoulders and misty eyes. In our world, the awakening rate hovered around 70%, and every single one of them was destined for the army. Soon, the process was over. Everyone returned to their positions, and faint murmurs spread through the crowd, some filled with joy, others heavy with disappointment. Daniel stepped forward, locking the blue door with a key before turning to face us. To those of you who have successfully awakened, I congratulate you. I wish you all the strength you'll need to grow, to fight, and to protect our world from the threats it faces. And to those who did not awaken, I wish you luck in supporting our world from within, ensuring we live to see another day. His gaze swept across us before continuing. Your probation period starts tomorrow. Today is your last chance to say your goodbyes to your families and to your batchmates. Graduates from across the Empire will be mixed into different units and sent to different places around the world for the probation training. Then his gaze shifted, locking onto the first row. Units will be formed based on your graduation rankings. There will be 2 types of units, the normal ones and the elites. The elite units will undergo most dangerous probation training. Your lives will become hell for the next year because the Empire demands strength, enough to protect yourselves and those around you. Also, we've recently received reports that the casualty rate among the elite units during probation has risen to 60%. The atmosphere turned somber after hearing that. That's all from me, Daniel concluded. Be here in the morning. It's time for you to grow up and face the real world. 10 graduates from our academy usually have a shot at one of the top 5 elite units. That caught my attention. I turned to him. What about Elite Unit 01? Steve sighed. That's going to be tough. You know how it is. Most of the spots go to graduates from the capital. I threw my hands up in exasperation. I hated the capital brats. I had met plenty of them throughout my academy years, whether in sports, training, or competitions. And let me tell you, they were absolute scumbags. You could smell their arrogance from a mile away. Just because they were from the capital, they acted like they were better than everyone else. Sure, the capital gathered the strongest from all over the Empire. But what gave these kids the right to act high and mighty when they hadn't achieved anything on their own yet? Steve shrugged. Outside the capital, Astra, our city, Cairo, is one of the biggest in the Empire. Avenue Academy is ranked 5th or 6th overall. So, we might not make it into Elite Unit 01, but we have a good shot at 02 or 03. He had a point. Cairo was one of the major cities of our world. I thought about the predicament our world was facing. Our world, Vathos, was ruled by a single royal family, the House of Rayleigh. Because of them, our empire was known as the Rayleigh Empire. Here, awakening wasn't just a milestone, it was an obligation. The moment you awakened, you were bound to serve. Whether in the army or another military branch depended on your performance during the probation period. Our entire empire was in war mode, and it needed all the fresh blood it could get. But 300 years ago, our world wasn't in such a dire state. People awakened at random times while doing ordinary things, some as late as 30 or 40 years old. They lived their lives as they pleased. Back then, there was no empire. Instead, our world was divided into various kingdoms and federations, each governing its own territories. But then, everything changed. Our universe was attacked by another universe, an invasion led by an ancient race that called themselves the Eternals. They sought to conquer and subjugate entire worlds, claiming dominion over the cosmos. Countless worlds in our universe were swallowed by the war. At first, our world was spared. We weren't on the front lines, and for a time, we remained untouched. But that changed when a more advanced world took notice of us. They bestowed upon us new technologies and gave us a strict timeline, 50 years to prepare for war. After that, we would have no choice but to join the front lines. Thus began the Throne War. The kingdoms and federations, instead of uniting, turned on each other in a brutal struggle for dominance. Every ruler sought to claim power, hoping to secure the greatest benefits from the higher-level worlds. After millions of deaths and endless destruction, one faction emerged victorious, the Rayleigh family. With their triumph, the Rayleigh Empire was born, and for the past 200 years, they had ruled our world. The first 100 years were nothing short of a nightmare. We were nothing more than cannon fodder, thrown into the meat grinder by the more powerful worlds. We lost millions. But then, the war came to a sudden halt. No more battles raged on the front lines. No more soldiers fell. Just as people began to relax, believing the worst was over, the Eternals unleashed the Phantoms. All the deaths across our universe during the first 100 years of war had not been in vain. At least, not for the Eternals. They had harvested every fallen soul, forging them into living, emotionless armors with a singular purpose: to kill and destroy. Then came the abominations, beasts corrupted and twisted by the restless souls of the dead. They attacked in endless hordes, their monstrous forms merging flesh and spirit, spreading chaos across every world. There were no more front lines. Every world became a battlefield. For the past 100 years, our universe had been locked in an endless struggle against the Phantoms and abominations. But it was a losing battle. Every soldier who died only swelled their numbers. The more we fought, the more we fed the enemy. Finally, we reached Steve's home. He unlocked the door, and we both stepped inside. He was living alone at the moment. Both his parents were in the army. We headed straight for the living room and flopped onto the couch. I looked at him, a smirk forming on my lips. "So?" He blinked at me and asked back. "So?" I coughed and leaned forward. "How did your awakening go? Did you awaken a talent?" "Talent? No, I didn't," he answered. Then suddenly his eyes widened. He stared at me for a moment before blurting out, "Don't tell me. You awakened a talent?" I grinned. "Yes, I did." He blinked a few times, took a deep breath, and then lunged at me. I barely dodged, jumping off the couch and rolling onto the floor. "Hey, what are you doing?" I shouted. He scrambled over the couch, charging straight for me. "This is bullshit. Why you, of all people?" I bolted toward the kitchen, grabbing a chair and putting it between us. "What do you mean, why me? Are you saying I don't deserve a talent?" Steve circled the chair, eyes locked onto me like a predator. "I mean exactly that. Of all the people in the world, it had to be you? The guy who was already beating us in everything." I smirked. "Sounds like jealousy to me." "Oh, I'm way past jealousy," he growled, suddenly kicking the chair aside and lunging again. I laughed and dashed around the kitchen island. "I mean, come on, Steve. Don't act like this changes anything. You weren't going to catch up to me even before I had a talent." "You." He grabbed an apple from the counter and hurled it at me. I ducked just in time. The apple slammed into the wall with a dull thud. I laughed. "Missed." He grabbed the kitchen knife. stand still, and find out if I miss again. I bolted back toward the living room, leaping over the couch. No thanks. I'm not about to get murdered by my best friend just because I got lucky. He followed. You didn't just get lucky. You just had to be the guy who's already good at everything. And now you get a talent too? That's life, buddy. I teased, dodging around. He groaned, finally collapsing onto the couch, panting. Fine. Whatever. I don't care anymore. I grinned, sitting on the armrest. He turned to me with that same lazy expression he was known for and asked, "So, what kind of talent did you awaken?" I let the anticipation build for a moment before answering. My talent's name is Generator. Generator? Steve looked at me, eyes narrowing in curiosity. Yes, Generator, I answered. He tilted his head. So what does it do? I have no idea, I admitted. There is no description, just the name Generator 1 and something called Essence 0/5. Steve frowned. That's weird. There should be some kind of explanation. Are you supposed to figure out yourself? I shrugged. I guess so. He rubbed his chin, thinking. Well, at least from the name, it sounds like it's related to generating something. And that essence thing? It's probably what powers it. Yeah, I think so too. But the real question is, what do I fill the essence with? And once it's full, what happens next? I said, should we test it out? I asked, excited. No. Steve hurriedly waved his hands. Billion, I need to pack my stuff, inform my parents, and take care of a ton of things. You go figure this out on your own and tell me later, okay? I smirked. Yeah, right. I'm sure your lazy ass is just going to sleep for half the day. He scoffed, and, shaking my head, I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. See you tomorrow. Yeah. Don't blow yourself up before then, he called out. I chuckled as I stepped outside. I grabbed my bike and sped back home. My house was in a different locality, more private, wealthier than Steve's. Soon, I reached my driveway, rolling straight into the garage. My home was a 2-story bungalow with plenty of space around it. A private garden, a gym, and even a swimming pool, luxuries that felt empty without the people who once filled this house with warmth. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. For a few moments, I just stood there in the living room, taking it all in. My gaze drifted to the right wall, where a large painting of our family hung. I walked over and stopped in front of it. My grandmother, Elena Ironheart, sat in a chair, holding a 7-year-old me in her lap as I made ridiculous faces. Behind her stood my father, Julius Ironheart, clad in his full Special Forces uniform, green eyes, brown hair, and a small but proud smile. Beside him, my mother, Chloe Ironheart, stood tall in her own Special Forces uniform, long black hair cascading over her shoulders, her dark eyes locked onto me even in the painting. They met during their probation, fell in love, and built a life together. I lost them 10 years ago. Since then, it had just been Grandma and me. I hadn't even realized my eyes had grown misty. I cleared my throat and forced a smile. Hey, Dad. Mom. My voice was quiet. Your son finally awakened. I exhaled slowly, my lips twitching into a smirk. I graduated at the top of my batch, just like you, Mom. I'll make it into the Special Forces, too. Grandma and Steve are always around, so life's been going okay. I took a step closer, my hands curling into fists. And don't worry, I'll come and free your souls soon from those eternal bastards. I've been training hard, very hard. I awakened a talent, too, so just wait for me. I gave a small bow, then turned and headed straight for the gym. My gym was a long, rectangular hall, spacious enough to fit at least 20 people exercising comfortably. I had equipped it with everything I needed to push my stats beyond the normal limit. After changing into my workout clothes, I started stretching. And of course I did squats. Squats were king. Deciding I had enough, I called up my status screen, scanning it again to make sure I hadn't missed anything that could give me a clue about my talent. All right, let's see what you can do, Mr. Generator the First. I focused on it a little harder, boom. The screen flipped. A new panel floated in front of me, titled Talent. Goddamn, I muttered, eyes widening in surprise. Talent. Talent name, Generator. Function, generates essence from absorbed energy. Level 1, essence, 0/5 units. Level up requirement, 100 units of essence generated. Progress, 0 out of 100. Talent upgrade requirement, talent level 5. Generator activation command, requires voice command. Recharge sources, any form of energy. Abilities, essence transfer, can transfer stored essence to an attribute. After use, 10% of the transferred essence unit remains as a permanent boost. Essence infusion, can infuse stored essence. I stared at the new panel floating in front of me, my eyes scanning every detail. My heartbeat quickened as I processed the information. My eyes immediately locked onto the function section. My face went through a whirlwind of emotions: surprise, shock, excitement, and pure thrill. Controlling essence usually required higher level and proficiency, but I could generate it myself. That was massive. I immediately moved to the abilities section and read about essence transfer. I reread the line twice, then a third time, my fingers tightening into a fist. This was insane. I could permanently increase my stats just by using my talent. That meant every battle, every strategic use of essence would make me stronger, not just through normal leveling, but beyond that. I exhaled, forcing down the grin threatening to spread across my face. Then my eyes landed on the next ability: energy infusion. Store essence, generate essence, and unleash it in an attack. No complicated steps, just raw power at my disposal. Simple, efficient, and on top of all that, I could level up my talent. My gaze flicked to the level up requirement, 100 units absorbed. I quickly ran the numbers in my head. With a max essence of 5 units at a time, I need at least 20 full absorption to level up. That wasn't too bad. As long as I kept generating it, I'd get there. But what really caught my attention was the talent upgrade requirement, talent level 5. So once generator hit level 5, I could upgrade it into something even stronger. Damn, that was hot. What would generator even evolve into? My mind raced with countless thoughts, but I shook my head, clearing them away. And I stared at the blinking essence activation command line, rubbing my chin. I needed something simple, something I wouldn't forget, but also something that wouldn't make me sound like a total idiot if I had to say it in the middle of a group of people. I ran through a few options in my head. Go boom? No, that sounded like I was about to explode. Activate? Too generic. Juice me up? Yeah, no, absolutely not. Then it hit me. Power up. It was simple, direct, and best of all, it had the right energy. I grinned and mentally confirmed the selection. The blinking text on my panel shifted. Essence activation command. Power up. Nice. With that done, I dismissed the panel. The golden text flickered for a moment before fading away, leaving me alone in the gym once more. Now, all that was left was to put this talent to the test, and I intended to do just that. I decided to test it out with a high-speed sprint. If generator worked the way I imagined, then raw movement should be enough to create some kinetic energy which would in return trigger essence. Stepping onto the track at the far end of my gym, I took a deep breath, feeling the floor beneath my feet. My muscles tensed, ready to explode into motion. Power up! The moment the words left my lips, something shifted. A sharp pulse throbbed at the center of my forehead, right between my brows. A faint glow, emerald and eerie, flickered to life. Then, before I could react, essence surged toward me from every direction. The air itself seemed to shudder. Invisible streams of essence twisted and coiled, drawn toward me like metal filings to a magnet, all of it rushing. No, slamming into my chest. Then my heart trembled. A deafening thump shook my ribcage, like a war drum struck by a titan. My entire upper body convulsed as a shock wave blasted outward, shredding my workout shirt into strips of fabric. My vision blurred, pain started flaring all over my body, and I began floating. The sheer concentration of essence lifted me off the ground, suspending me midair as raw, unfiltered power swirled around me. My limbs trembled. My veins burned. My body wasn't built for this. A second heartbeat followed, too powerful, too wild. Then a third, and a fourth. Each pulse sent agony ripping through my chest. Something was wrong. Then my heart ruptured, literally ruptured. ruptured like an overfilled water balloon bursting all at once. Pain unlike anything I had ever felt ripped through me. My consciousness wavered, and then everything went dark. The wild, chaotic essence that had torn through me now gathered at the empty space where my heart should have been. It swirled, condensed, shaped itself into a new heart. It pulsed once, twice, glowing a deep, vibrant green before slowly fading. Warmth returned, my blood flowing again, my body stabilizing like nothing had happened. The essence flow stabilized, and my body gently settled back to the ground. And then, after what felt like forever, my eyes snapped open. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, my mind still reeling from the pain I'd felt just before blacking out. For a moment, I swore I had felt my own death. Terrifying. I checked my condition, flexing my fingers, clenching and unclenching my fists. Everything seemed to be working fine. No pain, no wounds, no torn muscles, even though it had felt like my entire body had been ripped apart. I groaned and pushed myself up, rolling my shoulders before doing a few stretches. A couple of jumps, a few quick movements to make sure nothing had stopped working. Then my eyes landed on my chest. A fist-sized tattoo, shaped like an intricate formation of green gears, interlocking seamlessly into a complex design, the kind used in motors, was stamped right over my heart. Whoa, now this is new. I traced a finger over it, but the mark didn't feel any different from my skin. Did this damn talent recreate my heart? The gears sat there, unmoving, like it had always been a part of me. It hadn't even asked for my permission. Something instinctive clicked in my mind. I didn't question it. I activated the command. Power up, bottom. A deep, heavy heartbeat slammed through my chest like a war drum. My eyes glowed faintly. Then silence. I understood what needed to be done. I exhaled sharply and shot forward into a sprint. My legs burned as I pushed myself to my absolute limit, sprinting around the gym at full speed. I completed 13 full rounds before a faint heat began to build in my heart. The sensation was new, but instead of stopping, I pushed forward, slowing my pace slightly. I moved toward the hanging punching bag. I came to a halt, took a deep breath, and then went at it. My fists slammed into the bag in steady, relentless bursts, each strike landing with a dull thud as I kept hammering away nonstop, feeling the rising heat in my heart. I could feel my heart absorbing the heat and kinetic energy generated from my punches and movements. It was automatic, but I realized I could direct what to absorb but not when. So I focused on diverting the absorption toward heat rather than kinetic energy, letting me maintain my peak form longer and avoid muscle overheating. But I also noticed something else. The absorption wasn't entirely efficient. Some energy still leaked away, and the process felt rough, unpolished. Still, that didn't matter. Once my talent leveled up, I knew it would refine itself. It was only a matter of time before things started working perfectly. Almost an hour later, I stopped, letting out a deep breath as I shook out my arms. My muscles still felt like they had more to give, but I had gathered enough data for now. Time to check the results. I pulled up my status. My gaze snapped to the essence value. 3/5. Hell yeah, that was way better than I expected. The talent was still just level 1, yet it had managed to absorb a good amount of energy. If I had to guess, maybe only 10% of what I generated actually got stored. I grinned. Someday, when this thing hits its peak, I pictured it, me floating in the sky, and meteor hurtling toward me at insane speed. And instead of dodging, I just absorb all of it like it was nothing. The sheer thought made me chuckle. People would lose their damn minds. A giant space rock about to obliterate everything, then boom, it just stops. Midair, floating. Like, nah, I'll take that. I shook my head, still grinning. That was a long way off. But the fact that it wasn't impossible, that was enough to keep me pushing forward. So maybe another hour of intense workout, and I could completely fill the essence. I grabbed a bottle, took a few gulps of water, and wiped the sweat off my forehead. I realized there was no time to waste. If I could fully charge the core now, I'd finally get to test essence transfer and maybe, just maybe, push my dexterity to 10. With that goal locked in, I rolled my shoulders, took a deep breath, and got back to work. After another hour of intense training, I stood there, breathing heavily, sweat dripping down my face. My eyes locked onto my status. Essence, 5 out of 5. I knew it was full because of the soothing heat in my heart and the way the glow in my eyes faded, an unmistakable sign that the generator had deactivated. Finally, it was time for essence transfer. I willed it to activate, and all 5 units flowed into dexterity, and I checked my status. Essence, 0 out of 5. Dexterity, 14. A subtle shift ran through my body muscles adjusting, nerves sharpening, movements feeling lighter and more responsive. It wasn't dramatic, but I felt the difference. Of course, I knew the boost wouldn't last. Only 10% of the 5-unit transferred would become permanent, just 0.5 points. But if I used the enhanced dexterity to train harder, generate more energy, and refill my essence, I could keep cycling this process, a loop that would let me push my stats far beyond normal limits. And so, I activated the generator again. Power up! Without wasting a second, I launched into high-speed combat drills, shadowboxing at blistering speeds, rapid sprints across the training area, pushing my reactions and movement to their absolute limits. My strikes became a blur, my steps barely touching the ground before I was already in motion again. And during that time, my dexterity stat kept tickling down. In fact, it was completely spent by the halfway mark. 2 hours flew by. By the end of it, I was spent. My dexterity boost let me move faster, react quicker, but my current stamina wasn't built for this pace. Still, I had pushed myself as far as I could. I exhaled sharply and pulled up my status. Status: Name, Billion Ironheart. Race, human. Class, not applicable. Laws, not applicable. Level, 0. Talent, Generator 1. Essence, 5 out of 5. Attributes: Strength, 8. Constitution, 7. Dexterity, 9.5. Synapse, 7. Unused stats, 0. I floated in my swimming pool, staring at my status screen. Status: Name, Billion Ironheart. Race, human. Class, not applicable. Laws, not applicable. Level, 0. Talent, Generator 1. Essence, 0 out of 5. Attributes: Strength, 8. Constitution, 7. Dexterity, 10. Synapse, 7. Unused stats, 0. My dexterity had finally hit 10. I like this feeling. There was a noticeable change in my body, like I had broken through some invisible barrier and the path to greatness had officially begun. This talent is too overpowered. 4 hours of training, and I got a whole 1 unit of stat. Excitement buzzed through me. If I used this talent properly and kept upgrading it, I was sure I'd always be ahead of my peers. But there was a catch. I couldn't use it back to back, not because of the energy absorption itself, but because of the sheer strain I had to put my body through to generate that much energy. However, if something else was generating energy and all I had to do was absorb it, things would be different. I smirked. Very different. I glanced at the time and sighed. I should get out. It's already 5. Grandma's about to arrive. I left the pool and headed straight to my room. After a proper shower, making sure I was spotless, I got dressed, black pants, a light blue formal shirt, and sprayed on some cologne to smell presentable. Grandma, Elena Ironheart, was a no-nonsense woman. Strict, tough. She valued discipline, silence, and professionalism above all else. After losing her son and daughter-in-law, she became even more rigid. The only time I ever saw her smile was with me. She held a high-ranking position in the military and even had influence in the capital. It was her decision to send me to Avenue Academy, my mother's alma mater, to honor her memory. Otherwise, with Grandma's connections, I could have easily joined any academy in the capital. She was a strong, powerful, and influential woman. I stepped outside, the cool evening breeze brushing against my face as I waited at the front entrance. The sky had turned a deep shade of orange, the sun dipping below the horizon. I checked the time, 5:55 p.m. Right on schedule. A few minutes later, The distinct hum of an approaching vehicle filled the air. A sleek, armored black car rolled up to the driveway, stopping smoothly in front of me. The doors unlocked with a quiet click. The back door opened, and she stepped out. Elena Ironheart. She wore her usual military attire, crisp, dark black uniform, polished boots, and a badge that gleamed under the fading sunlight. Her black hair was tied into a neat bun, and her sharp, brown eyes landed on me instantly. She gave me a once-over and smiled a little. I straightened my posture instinctively. "Welcome home, Grandma." She nodded, stepping forward with the controlled precision of a soldier. As she passed, she spoke again. "Too much cologne." I followed her inside, holding back a laugh. We went inside, and I sat across from her on the living room couch. She stared at me for a few moments before speaking. "So, how did your awakening go?" I smiled. "It was successful. I awakened a talent as well." Her faint smile vanished, and her eyes widened slightly. "You got a talent?" "Yes." Her expression returned to its usual stoic calm almost instantly. "What kind of talent?" I gave her a brief explanation, telling her how I managed to increase my dexterity from 9 to 10. She sat there in silence, thinking. I wished I could see what gears were turning in her head. Finally, she stood up. "Come, it's your last day before probation. Let me make dinner for you." I smiled and nodded, following her into the kitchen. She moved swiftly around the kitchen, her sleeves rolled up to her elbows. The sharp scent of sizzling spices filled the air as she flipped something in the pan, her eyes focused on the task at hand. I sat on the kitchen stool, watching her work. She didn't often cook, but when she did, it always felt special. She reached for the knife, expertly dicing vegetables before tossing them into the pan. Without turning to face me, she spoke. "Your talent is definitely an advantageous thing for you, but that does not give you leeway to relax on your training. Am I clear?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. She gave a small nod before her voice softened slightly. "I have always raised you to be a man of principle and values, just like your father. I have rarely hidden any important information about the situation our world is facing. So, I would like it if you worked even harder, using your talent to its full potential, to always keep yourself safe." I nodded. I planned to do that. I had a mission to accomplish. Elena stirred the contents of the pan, letting the aroma settle in the air before speaking again. "Now, let me tell you what I think of your talent. I know some details about the talents that other people and even some of the strongest warriors have awakened. I have seen talents that level up, but never one that allows upgrades as well." Hearing that, I couldn't help but feel special. She continued, "So your talent has great potential, but you should understand, the greatest benefit of your talent is not its ability to provide you with more stats. It is the ability to absorb energy and generate essence from it. The ability to increase your stats should be considered secondary." I leaned forward slightly, listening attentively. "Because of your talent, you will be exposed to essence way before anyone else. You should always try to feel it, understand it, follow it. The more you learn about essence, the more powerful you will become." She glanced at me then, her sharp eyes holding my gaze. "For example, if you use the stored essence as an attack, how would you use it? Are you simply going to punch and transfer it through your fist? Or can you find a unique way to apply it?" "Oh, and your talent is called Generator, not Essence Generator, which means there's a chance it could evolve to generate something else too." I thought about the implications of her words. She was right. Essence and how I utilized it would be the key to my growth, and the possibility it could generate something else was there as well. So you will have 3 things that will make you powerful: your class, if you manage to snatch a better one, your talent's ability to give an extra boost to your stats, and most importantly, your ability to control essence. I agreed with her. Everything she said made perfect sense. Then, a glint appeared in her eyes, something rare, excitement. "After hearing about your talent, I just had a wild idea. Would you like to hear it?" I sat up straight. "Yes. What kind of idea?" She crossed her arms, her tone shifting slightly. "So, you start at level 0 and gain 5 stat points per level to distribute among 4 different stats. In total, You will gain 125 stat points by the time you reach level 25. She let that sink in before continuing. Normally, people don't distribute their points evenly, but even if someone started with balanced stats of 10 at level 0, they still wouldn't reach 50 in all attributes before their class selection. I frowned, trying to follow where she was going with this. So here's my idea. Why don't you try to surpass 50 stat points in all attributes before hitting level 25? My eyes widened. She smirked. I would even suggest going as high above 50 as possible. I'm sure it would give you access to some incredible class choices. I processed her words. No one in recorded history had ever reached 50 points in all attributes before class selection. If I did this, I'd be in completely uncharted territory. Right there and then, I decided I was going to do it. Even if I had to gruel myself day and night, I was going to do it. I stood up from sheer excitement, and just as I was about to squat, Billy and sit, I stopped mid-squat, coughed awkwardly, and sat back down quietly. I waited patiently while Grandma prepared dinner. After she finished cooking, we sat across from each other, the dining table between us. The meal was simple yet hearty, just like every dinner she made. I ate quietly, knowing this was the last meal we'd share before I left. Grandma set down her spoon and looked at me with those sharp, unwavering eyes. "Billion, take care of yourself." I nodded, chewing my food. "Eat properly. Don't skip meals just because you're training." "I won't. Train properly. Don't get complacent." "Yes, Grandma." She exhaled, her eyes softening just a little. "You are the only family I have left." I lower my spoon. "I know. Then act like it. Don't do anything reckless. Keep your head down when needed and fight when it matters. And keep your talent a secret as long as possible, okay?" I grinned. "I'll make you proud." "You already do." That caught me off guard. I stared at her, but she had already picked up her spoon again, as if she hadn't just said something that heavy. I clenched my fist under the table. "I'll come back stronger." She nodded once. "Good." We finished the rest of our meal in silence. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, taking one final look at myself. I wore a white shirt under a navy blue jacket, paired with blue jeans and white shoes. After making sure everything was in place, I picked up my luggage and headed downstairs. Grandma was waiting in the living room. "Here," she said, stepping forward and placing a necklace around my neck. "This was something your mother made for your father. It's one of the few things I was able to salvage from that place." I looked down at the necklace, my fingers tracing the cracks running along the pendant. It was a blue infinity symbol, worn with time, with the letters J and C, my parents' initials, engraved on each loop. Grandma studied my face for a moment before a soft smile appeared. "All right, you can go now. Make sure you return to me safely." I looked at her, the only family I had left in this world. First, she lost her husband, then her son and daughter-in-law. I couldn't begin to comprehend the pain she must feel every day. Stepping forward, I hugged her gently. "I love you, Grandma. I'll miss you. I'll come back safe and stronger." She held me close for a moment before whispering, "Grandma loves you too, Billion, and I will wait for your return." I stepped back, gave her a slight bow, then picked up my luggage. Without another word, I walked out of the house. Even as I reached the car, I could feel her eyes on my back. The driver loaded my bags, and soon we were on the road, heading straight for the academy. It was time to begin a new chapter of my life. The drive didn't take long, and soon we arrived at the academy gates. I grabbed my luggage and made my way toward the assembly ground. At the front, a few instructors were stationed behind a set of tables, taking inventory of the students' belongings. I handed over my luggage, watching as they quickly noted it down, then moved toward the growing crowd of recruits. It was early, 6:30 in the morning, and the sun was barely peeking over the horizon. I scanned the area, spotting clusters of my batchmates standing around, some talking, others waiting in silence. My eyes searched for Steve, but he was nowhere to be found. Letting out a small sigh, I moved to a quieter corner, standing with my hands in my pockets as I waited for the others to arrive. The crowd gradually thickened as more recruits streamed in, and just as I was about to check my status out of boredom, I finally spotted Steve walking through the gates in his usual laid-back, lazy attitude. He looked around, and as soon as he spotted me, He walked over. At least today, you should have arrived early, I said. I'm early. There's still 5 minutes left, he shot back. Without giving me a chance to argue, he changed the topic. Anyway, any idea what happens next? Yeah, Grandma told me. We'll be picked, then mixed, units will be fixed, and then hell will be released. Steve rolled his eyes. Great. That sounds reassuring. So, did you figure out your talent? I did, and it's great. I'll show you later. He narrowed his eyes, but didn't push further. I knew he'd bug me about it eventually. And soon, a whistle was blown, and we began arranging ourselves in rank order. Daniel stood in front of us, a bundle of files in his hands. All right, no need to waste any more time. Your luggage has been collected and will be sent to your assigned barracks. Now, here's what's going to happen. You'll be sent to the Probation Central Hub, PCB, in the capital. That will be your reporting headquarters for the next year. He raised the file slightly. There will be personnel ready to receive you. You need to take your file and hand it over to them. These contain personal feedback from Avenue Academy. Consider them your make-or-break records. And yes, we make them public, so everyone will know when you've been marked red for messing up or green for doing great. His eyes scanned the crowd before continuing. The reason for making your records public is simple: to build confidence and awareness among your comrades. Like it or not, that's how the Empire operates. Your units have already been decided and updated based on whether you awakened or not. I stiffened. Already decided? I thought we'd go through training first, some kind of assessment, and then get assigned. So, I wish you all luck, Daniel continued. How you perform during probation will also reflect on the records of our academy, so give it your best. Oh, and I've applied for PCB too, so maybe we'll see each other there. Damn, I'd have to deal with him there too. Not that I had anything personal against the guy, but our ideologies didn't exactly mix well. We were directed into another hall of the academy, where a middle-aged man in sunglasses stood at the front, casually drinking a smoothie. Daniel handed out our files before introducing him. This here is Mr. Rodriguez. He'll be responsible for transporting you all to PCB. His class is related to teleportation. Teleportation? Now, that was interesting. As far as I knew, it was a rare class, highly valuable in the Army. The only downside? It provided zero direct combat benefits, making it more of a support role. Rodriguez didn't say a word. He just nodded, slurping his drink. Then, with a wave of his hand, a glowing blue circle surrounded us. And then, nothing. My vision darkened for a second before everything snapped back into place. We were standing in a massive hall, far bigger than anything I'd seen before. The walls stretched at least 50 meters high, and the space extended endlessly on either side. Around us, hundreds of recruits were scattered, all young boys and girls like us. We were inside the PCB. Above us, enormous chandeliers hung, casting a soft glow over the hall. I saw all my batchmates with me, but no sign of Rodriguez or Daniel. Then a voice rang out. Welcome to the PCB, students from Avenue Academy. I turned to see a woman in a blazer and tight pants standing at the front. She smiled as she spoke. I'd like you all to proceed to the counters behind me and submit your files to the recorders. Now, hurry up, other Academy students will be arriving soon. Not wasting time, I stepped forward, passing by her and approaching one of the counters. Hi there, here's my file, I said, handing it over. The woman behind the counter smiled, took the file, and opened the first page. A thin beam of blue light emerged from her eyes, sweeping across the document like a projector scanner. As she flipped through the pages, the light traced each one, glowing briefly before fading. I stared, my jaw hanging open. Are you kidding me? I blurted out. She glanced up at me, then chuckled. Yeah, I get that reaction a lot. I have a class called Recorder. As the name suggests, we keep and update records. Wow, that's so cool, I said. Thank you. Billion? That's quite a unique name. I rubbed the back of my head. Yeah, my dad kind of liked big numbers. Thankfully, my mom stopped him at billion. Otherwise, I'd have ended up with something ridiculous like trillion or Google. She laughed at that, finishing her scan before stamping something on the file. All right, you're good to go. Welcome to PCB. She pulled out a small black metal card, and her eyes glowed, once again as words began imprinting themselves onto its surface. Once finished, she flipped it over and stamped it with the Empire's emblem, a glittering thunderbolt. Finally, she handed it to me. Here, this will be your identity card for the coming year. I took the card and examined the details written on it. Identity card. I stared at the words Elite Unit 02 on the card. I didn't feel as happy as I thought I would. Seeing 02 instead of 01 nagged at me. I knew the chances were low, extremely low, but a part of me had still hoped. The rank on the card likely referred to my standing within Unit 02, though I wasn't sure how they calculated it. But damn, I made it into 02. That was way better than my parents. They had both been part of 07, so yeah, I had one up them. 02. I recognized Steve's voice from behind me. I turned and grinned. 02. He raised his hand, and we high-fived. Throwing an arm over his shoulder, I pulled him along. Let's go see what this 02 is about. Soon, we stood in front of a door with a huge glowing sign above it that read 02. Steve and I exchanged glances. He shrugged, so I clicked the door open, and we stepped inside. The room was a large hall with a center stage in one corner. Again, no chairs. Around 30 to 40 people were already inside, all dressed in military uniforms, black pants, black shoes, and tight-fitting black shirts. A Thunderbolt emblem was imprinted on their left chest, and a bold 02 marked their right. The moment we entered, every head turned toward us. I could feel their eyes sizing us up, judging us in one way or another. The tension in the air was almost electric. And why wouldn't it be? When you throw a bunch of top-ranking students into the same room, egos clash, and a new competition begins. I forced the sweetest smile I could manage. Steve scoffed beside me. Someone suddenly called out, "To your left." I turned and saw a door labeled Changing Room. "Let's go," I said to Steve, and we headed inside. The room was stocked with uniforms in various sizes. We picked out what fit us, changed, and returned to the hall. We stood in the corner for a few minutes, and I was already getting bored. Turning to Steve, I said, "Hey, let's go introduce ourselves. See what kind of comrades we're going to have." Steve blinked at me, then shoved his hands into his pockets and stared off into the distance. Not interested. "Come on, it'll be interesting," I urged. "It won't be," he said flatly. "We'll get to know them later anyway." He shrugged, still looking at nothing in particular. "So, what am I supposed to do until everyone gathers?" I asked. "Look around. See what others are doing. Then follow the same." I sighed and glanced around the room. Most people were just standing in small groups of one or two. Some stood alone, aimlessly looking around. Every time someone new walked in, there was a brief moment of tension, a small buzz, as if everyone had been jolted by a mild shock before they went back to staring into space. Is that so?" I said, rolling my shoulder and cracking my neck. "You know, Steve, I think you've forgotten something about me." He finally turned to look at me, brows furrowing. Then, as if something clicked, his eyes widened slightly. "Dude, no. Please don't. Just let there be peace for once." I grinned. "No, Steve. I don't follow others. I make others follow me." Without another word, I started walking toward the stage. I could already feel eyes on me, the room stirring as I passed. By the time I stood at the center of the stage, the whole hall was buzzing. I looked down at Steve from the stage and saw him mouthing, "I will kill you." Ignoring him, I scanned the crowd. Most of them were glaring at me, their stares practically burning holes through me. But who cared? I certainly didn't. I smirked, letting the tension in the room settle before I spoke. My voice echoed in the hall. "My name is Billion Ironheart, and since we're all going to be part of this unit together, let me make one thing clear." I raised my hand and pointed at the crowd, slowly sweeping my finger across them. "I don't care which academy you came from, what rank you held, or what fancy class you think you're getting. And I sure as hell don't care how strong you think you are." I let my words hang for a moment, then smirked. "What I do care about is that by the time this probation is over, you all will know one thing for certain. That no one here outworks me. No one here outlasts me. And by the time this is over, whether you like it or not, you will be chasing me." The moment I finished, the room erupted. Some scoffed, others exchanged glances, and a few stepped forward as if they wanted to say something. A low murmur filled the hall. From the corner of my eye, I saw Steve sigh, rubbing his temples. I stood on the stage, arms crossed, my grin unwavering as the crowd murmured in response to my words. The air in the room was tense, but I could feel the spark of excitement, like a storm about to break. Then, a voice rang out from the crowd. "Looks like you practiced that speech in the mirror." A few chuckles followed. I didn't miss a beat. "Oh no, dude. I'm just naturally this good. You, on the other hand, should definitely try the mirror, it might help." More laughter rippled through the room. But I knew they won't allow me to take the spotlight, and I was right. Soon another voice spoke up. Big words for someone I've never even heard of. I turned my head slightly, locking eyes with the speaker. "Maybe you were sleeping the entire time, or just too slow to keep up. Should I speak slower for you?" A chorus of "oh" followed, the kind that usually came before a fight or a challenge. Someone else, feeling bold, took their turn. "You act like you're the leader here. Did they forget to tell you this isn't your academy anymore?" I let out a mock gasp. "Oh damn, really?" And here I was thinking they gave me this stage to make sure you all paid attention. That one landed. The laughter grew louder, a mix of genuine amusement and disbelief. Then, another voice, louder this time, as if to overpower the crowd. "Talk all you want, but we'll see if your fists are as fast as your mouth when the real fight starts." I tilted my head, pretending to consider his words before flashing a smirk. "Oh, don't worry, I'll even give you a head start. You'll still end up on the floor." I noticed the mood had shifted. Some looked amused, others irritated, but one thing was clear: I had their attention. Then, cutting through the back and forth, a calm, yet sharp voice spoke up. "Childish." For the first time, I turned my head fully, spotting the girl who had spoken. She stood with her arms folded, eyes unimpressed, as if she had better things to do than waste time on this. I gasped dramatically. "Oh, sorry, Grandma. We kids were just having fun. Didn't mean to disturb your afternoon nap." For a moment, silence. Then, the room exploded. Laughter, loud and unrestrained, filled the hall. Even those who had been glaring at me before couldn't help but smirk. A few shook their heads, some whispering among themselves. I winked at the girl with a smirk, and she glared at me. I stood there, taking in the reaction, my grin never fading. And I thought, this is going to be fun. Show me what you got, 02. I jumped down from the stage and walked towards Steve. A few guys stepped forward to introduce themselves, and before long, everyone was moving around, talking and laughing and turning to stare at the door whenever someone entered. I even dragged a couple of them over to meet lazy Steve. Couldn't let him rest too much. The door opened once again, and everyone turned toward it. Suddenly, the room fell silent. And then I saw the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. My green eyes narrowed instinctively, as if trying to imprint her image in my mind. She stood by the door, scanning the crowd with a sharp gaze. Tall, almost 6 feet. Large, expressive brown eyes, a cute, oval face, and long black hair tied back in a ponytail. She wore a fitted black blazer over a sleek brown V-neck top, paired with matching black pants that gave her a sharp yet effortless elegance. A delicate necklace rested against her collarbone, catching the light just enough to add to her presence. Few bracelets jingled on her left wrist, and high heels completed the look. For a moment, everything else faded for me. But suddenly thinking something, I leaned towards Steve and whispered, "Mine." He let out a lazy yawn and muttered back, "Sure, man. I'm too lazy for this shit anyway. Just don't start simping too hard." I smiled and answered, "Simping? Nah, man. That is not in my blood." Just as I decided to step forward, someone beat me to it. 2 boys and a girl moved toward her, cutting me off. The girl spoke first. "North, there's the changing room. Go ahead and get into your uniform." North smiled, her voice soft yet warm. "Oh, thank you, Sarah. I'll be out in a bit." With that, she turned and walked toward the changing room, leaving the rest of us watching her go. I slung an arm over Steve's shoulder and grinned. Guess I'll be sleeping facing the north direction from now on. Gotta keep my priorities straight. "Great. Just make sure you don't blow it up and things don't go south for you," Steve said with a smirk. But I can already see them heading south. A voice chimed in from behind us. We turned around to see a guy standing there, grinning. He was on the shorter side, maybe around 5 feet 5 inches. Not too short, but enough to notice. He extended a hand for a handshake and introduced himself. Hi, I'm Phil Dumble, rank 3 from Cairo Academy. I shook his hand and nodded. Hey, Phil. But he cut me off with a grin. Oh, I already know both of you. Billion and Steve, the speed bump duo from Avenue Academy. No youngster in Cairo wouldn't recognize you. Speed bump? I narrowed my eyes at him, tilting my head. Oh, I guess you didn't know. In every other academy in Cairo, both of you are called Speed Bump. He answered, Speed Bump. Seriously? That's all they could come up with? A city full of thousands of graduates, and that was the best they had? Talk about disappointing. Off the top of my head, I could think of at least a few better ones. Idlebolt, Chilling Blizzard, Dull Razor. Suddenly Steve spoke up. So he's Speed, and I'm Bump? Are you saying I'm just a bump? What a joke. An entire city couldn't come up with anything better? How about Chilling Blizzard, Dull Razor, Blaze Frost? I mean, he's fire, and I'm always cool as ice. Damn, talk about being best friends. And Blaze Frost? Wow. Phil smiled. Chill. They're just jealous of your achievements, so they're trying to make fun of you behind your back. It's fine. I waved it off. Leaving that aside, did you say something about things going south? Phil winked. Yeah, I know the girl you were staring at. I asked. Oh, and who is she? Her name's Northwinter. She's from the capital's Winter family. You know, the ones related to the royal family. I frowned. That doesn't mean things won't work out between us, right? Yeah, that's still manageable. But you know her grandfather? He leaned in and whispered. He's the one who leads Unit 02. I blinked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Her grandfather? Talk about coincidence. And talk about nepotism. I should put in a request to transfer this grandfather out of here. Steve turned to me, his face deadpan. So her grandfather is the commander of this unit. You understand what that means, right? I shrugged. Doesn't matter. Steve stepped back. All right then. You don't know me, and I don't know you. I'm not getting dragged into another mess with you. I grinned. Nope. I'm introducing myself as your best friend to everyone. Just then, the door burst open with a bang, nearly flying off its hinges. 2 people strode in, both wearing the same uniform as us. That's the grandfather, Phil chimed in. I locked eyes on the late middle-aged man making his way toward the stage. Bald, with a long, perfectly straight scar running from his ear to his nose, as if someone had carved it with surgical precision. His rugged, square face carried a hardened expression, but what stood out more was the way he moved. Fast, energetic, spring in his step. And I'd recognize a brother anywhere. He was just like me, bold and bulletproof. Beside him, a woman walked with a tablet in hand, adjusting her glasses. Tall, fit, and effortlessly composed, she matched the old man's stride, keeping just half a step behind him. Within moments, they reached the stage, turning to face us. I nudged Steve, and we both pushed forward, with Phil trailing behind us. Within moments, we were standing in the front row, directly facing the man. The rest of the recruits scrambled to gather. The man remained silent for a full 2 minutes, his sharp gaze sweeping over the crowd before he finally spoke. My name is Arcas Rayleigh, your commander. And this, he gestured to the woman beside him, is June Turner, your vice commander. And congratulations, you're now part of Elite Unit 02. His eyes narrowed as he took a deep breath, then his voice boomed across the room. After the formation of the Empire, when we fought our first war against the Eternals, we lost millions. Our ranks were getting decimated. Instead of focusing on getting stronger, our army wasted time filling positions and playing politics. Finally, the first emperor had enough. He scrapped the entire ranking system and declared that, from that moment on, the army would have only 2 official ranks, commander and soldier. Whoever led would be the commander. Everyone else? Soldiers. So for the next year, I will be your commander. When I'm not around, June will be your commander. Am I clear? I shouted immediately. Yes, commander. As always, no one else did. Arcas looked at me, then scanned the rest of the unit before speaking. I like it when people respond to my questions. Am I clear? The hall shook as everyone roared in unison. Yes, commander. Good, he said, continuing. And since there's only one rank, your strength is all that matters. Prove yourself, and you can be anything you want. If you want to apply directly to the Emperor's bodyguard, go ahead, show your worth, and you could join tomorrow. No need for years of experience, no waiting for promotions. Age, seniority, politics, none of it matters. Only strength and ability. He paused for a moment, then continued. Since you're part of an elite unit, you need to be far stronger than your peers who weren't assigned to one. That's because you'll be the ones leading operations and commanding armies. And that's also why everyone's records are made public, to ensure trust in their commanders and comrades during missions. Of course, if you're not convinced by someone's strength, you can always settle the difference in a fight. Without a breath, he continued. The man sure is intense. I thought, every awakened soldier is part of the army, which means any awakened can access your record. As commanders, you can create whatever internal ranks you want for your unit, but they won't hold official weight. For example, June's official rank in Unit 02 is Soldier, just like the rest of you. But I assigned her as Vice Commander in name. He swept his gaze over us. Do you understand? Yes, Commander, we shouted in unison. Next, let me tell you about Unit 02. Arca's voice carried across the hall, commanding everyone's attention. I came to PCB 20 years ago as a commander. My first assignment was Elite Unit 32. By the end of that year, I pushed its rank up to 27. And after shedding blood and sweat for PCB, I was finally assigned to lead Unit 02 5 years ago. He let that sink in for a moment before continuing. There are rankings and competitions throughout the year, with one final battle to determine each unit's standing. Right now, you're Unit 02, but by the end of the year, you could be Unit 100, and whatever rank you finish with. That's what goes on your record, not where you started. Suddenly, lightning crackled across his entire body, his eyes glowing an intense yellow. His voice boomed. For 5 years, I've been stuck at Unit 02. It took me 15 years to climb from 32 to 02, but now I've hit a roadblock. And believe me, I don't like that. The air around him hummed with power. I like to be the best, and 02 isn't the best. Someone put all of you through hell. If I find you lacking, I'll beat the shit out of you myself. He scanned the room, his gaze sharp. Your goal? Simple. Give me Unit 01. In return, you'll become stronger than anyone outside these walls. He sure is selfish, but I like his style. Am I clear? Yes, Commander, we roared back. Finally, for the first time since he started his breathless speech, Arcas smiled. Oh, I like that energy. His eyes gleamed with something close to amusement. Since I clearly haven't been able to produce soldiers strong enough to snatch rank 1, that means my previous methods weren't good enough. So this year, we're shaking things up. His voice turned sharper. I've noticed a pattern. Every year, new recruits waste their first month running around, making friends, chasing girls, and showing off. So, I've decided to move the schedule forward. You can still do all of that, just while trying to survive. He paused, letting those words settle. I handpicked each and every one of you based on the feedback we received from your academies. But now, all of you are starting from the same line. So, I'm throwing you into the jungle. For the next month, you'll fight to survive among the monsters, or should I say, the abominations. If you think you're the best, prove it in the coming month. Show me the result of your 4 years of training in the academy. Your ranks will be decided based on your performance. A few people stiffened. Others swallowed hard. Don't worry, he added. I'll make sure none of you die in the first month. That's all the help you're getting from me. He clasped his hands behind his back and continued. At the end of each month, we'll hold a ranking competition to decide your standing within the unit. Anyone below rank 20 will be punished. A hush fell over the room, and every 3 months, there will be a competition between all units. If our unit drops below rank 02, all of you will be punished. Silence. Then, his next words hit like a hammer. You leave for the jungle in 1 hour. His gaze swept over us. Am I clear? Yes, Commander, we shouted. What happened next completely convinced me that the grandfather was nuts. I mean, having high energy is great and all, but that doesn't mean you go full-blown crazy. Within an hour of his speech, we were each handed a military bag containing 2 extra uniforms, a basic first aid kit, a weapon that we like to use, so in my case, my hands, a communicator that connected us to June for emergencies and future instructions, and just enough food and water to maybe last a month if we stretched it. Otherwise, we'd have to figure out how to survive on our own in the forest. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, he made us sit through 5 battle recordings between human soldiers and abominations. I mean, we all knew what abominations were. We'd seen their footage before. But those were censored to keep kids from being too traumatized. Our commander, though, he didn't care about that. These videos were nothing but raw, unfiltered brutality. I watched as monsters tore people apart like paper. Human soldiers were butchered, thrown around like rag dolls, and left in mangled heaps. And then came the worst part. We saw their souls leaving their bodies, drifting away toward those damn Eternals. All around me, my unit clenched their fists, some muttering curses under their breath. How could they not? Every single one of us had lost family to battles like these. After that horror show, Arcas gave us yet another lecture, this time about how we had to be on our feet by the end of the month. Then came the carrot and stick approach, punishment and reward. Anyone who failed to reach level 12 by the end of the month left in the jungle for another week. The top 5, on the other hand, got to pick a system skill from his personal repository, better rank, better skill. And just like that, we were loaded onto a military aircraft and sent flying to God knew where. I looked around the aircraft. All of us were strapped in tight, secured to our seats. I couldn't even see Steve. Arcas had told us we'd be separated, and after that, it was up to us, team up or go solo, our choice. I couldn't see north either. I had so many plans for how I was going to introduce myself, but damn that old man. Back then, I swore I was going to set his bald head on fire one day. Suddenly, Arcas' voice echoed through the aircraft. All right, kids, we've reached our location. You'll be dropped at random points in 2 minutes. You don't have to do anything. Just stay conscious. The automatic parachutes attached to your bags will deploy midair. Of course, after that, you'll have to steer them properly unless you want to crash and break a few bones. Oh, and I think the monsters might notice you coming down, so be ready for an attack at any moment. All the best, and make me proud. Damn, what the fuck? I had no idea how to steer a parachute. Hell, I doubt anyone here did. What kind of sick bastard was this old man? A sudden scream tore through the aircraft. Everyone around me jerked in their seats, craning their necks to see what the hell was happening. Then, panic erupted. Fuck, he's actually dropping us from this high. I don't know how to use a parachute. Someone explain fast. How the fuck would we know? Weren't we supposed to get a month of training before getting thrown straight into hell? Somewhere behind me, a voice screeched. If I die, I swear I'm coming back as a phantom just to haunt that bald demon. Right then, Arcas' voice crackled through the speakers. You do realize I can't hear you, right? Silence. Then, Commander, I'm still a virgin. I can't die a virgin. A snort escaped me. Another scream. Panic spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the hatch beneath the guy next to me snapped open. He barely had time to scream before he was yanked down, disappearing into the clouds. A second later, boom, the hatch slammed shut. Everyone around me froze, eyes darting to one another, wide with panic. The air inside the aircraft grew thick with fear. I could feel my own body heating up, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I was scared, really scared. Calm down, Billion. I scolded myself, took a deep breath, and shut my eyes. Fuck this bald bastard. I'm not going to scream, no matter what. Gritting my teeth, I locked my jaw shut and waited. And waited. Screams echoed at regular intervals, each one followed by the deep boom of another hatch opening. Then, boom, a rush of wind slammed into me. I snapped my eyes open just in time to see the world flip upside down. I was falling. Tilting my head up, I caught a glimpse of the massive aircraft shrinking into the distance above me. The wind roared in my ears, a deafening rush as I plummeted through the sky. My stomach lurched, the sheer speed of my descent making my mind go blank for a second. Then instinct kicked in. I forced myself to focus. Spreading my arms and legs, I stabilized my body against the overwhelming pull of gravity. My vision adjusted, and for the first time, I took in the vast landscape below me. A massive forest stretched endlessly in every direction, an ocean of green broken only by rolling hills and occasional rivers cutting through the terrain. No clearings, no easy landing spots, just trees. A whole lot of fucking trees. Then it hit me. Generator. I had been too caught up in the chaos to think about it, but this high up, I was surrounded by one thing in abundance: air resistance and kinetic energy. I shouted, "Power up!" I activated my talent. A pulse of warmth spread through my body as I instinctively absorbed the sheer force of my descent, slowing me down slightly. Very slightly. The energy flowed into my heart, charging me like a living battery. I couldn't stop the fall completely, but the pressure on my body eased, giving me a little more time to react. And my descent continued towards the endless forest. Then, whip, my parachute deployed with a violent jolt, yanking me upwards as it caught the wind. My body lurched from the sudden deceleration, my harness biting into my shoulders. I grabbed the parachute's toggles and pulled, steering myself as best as I could toward a more open area. No clearings, but I spotted a section where the trees were more sparse. Good enough. Angling myself in that direction, I fought against the wind, adjusting my descent with small, controlled movements. The forest rushed up to meet me faster than I liked. I braced myself. Crack! My boot smashed into a branch, spinning me sideways. Thwack! Leaves and twigs whipped against my face as I crashed through the canopy. My arms flailed, trying to grab something, anything to slow me down. Snap! A final branch broke my momentum, and then, thud! I hit the ground hard, rolling over dirt and leaves before coming to a stop on my back. I groaned. Not perfect, but hey, I was alive. I lay there, staring up at the canopy. North, if things don't work out between us. I swear I'm rubbing detergent on your grandfather's bald head. I unclipped the parachute harness and tried to stand, but a sharp pain flared in my left foot. Shit! I dropped back down, gritting my teeth as a dull, throbbing spread through my ankle. Peeling off my boot, I winced at the sight. No swelling yet, but a dark bruise was already forming. It was going to get worse. I let out a breath and pulled off my other boot. After checking my necklace was in place, securing my bag, and checking that everything was still inside, I slowly got to my feet. A quick once-over told me I had cuts and bruises here and there, but nothing serious, aside from my ankle. I took a few gulps of water, trying to think. If the old man was serious and the abominations had seen us falling, then staying here was a terrible idea. I shoved the bottle back into my bag, strapped it on, and started limping in a random direction. I checked my status to see my essence store. April 5th. Expected. Falling from that height at such high velocity meant I was rapidly converting gravitational potential energy into kinetic energy. The sheer force of my descent, along with the impact and friction from the air, had generated enough energy to charge my core. I limped forward, forcing myself to focus on moving rather than the pain. The trees stretched endlessly. The air smelled damp, rich with earth and decay. Then I heard it. A whisper. A voice. Faint, distant. I froze. The whisper came again. Cold prickles raced down my spine. I turned sharply. Nothing. Just trees, swaying ever so slightly. Then, out of the corner of my eye, a figure. Standing. Still. Watching. I blinked and it was gone. Fuck. I blinked multiple times and held my breath. A monster had found me. I knew it. I squinted, scanning the trees, my ears straining for any movement. The whisper came again, threading through the silence, but I still couldn't see the creature. Slowly, I stepped forward, turning as I moved, my entire body tense. My eyes stayed locked on the environment, fully focused, ready for anything. I stayed like that for another 5 minutes, but aside from the whispers, seeming to come from everywhere, I couldn't find anything. Meanwhile, the pain in my ankle kept worsening. I could feel it starting to swell. Not seeing anything around me, I slowly limped forward, keeping my eyes and ears sharp. After 2 minutes, I stopped again. That feeling, that prickling sensation on the back of my neck, I was being watched. I turned, scanning every direction, but the monster remained unseen. I wanted to stop and tend to my ankle, but with something lurking nearby, That would be as good as inviting death. A sudden rush of air. Instinct screamed at me. I twisted too slow. Something sharp raked across my right arm. Pain flared as I stumbled back, biting down a curse. My breath hitched. The attack had been fast. Too fast. Blood dripped from 3 deep gashes just below my shoulder. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay steady, to keep my eyes wide. Where did it go? My pulse pounded in my ears as I turned, scanning the trees. The forest stretched endlessly, shadows shifting in the dim light. Nothing moved. No sound. No sign of it. But I knew it was still there, watching. The wound stung, but I ignored it, tightening my grip on my bag strap to make sure my back was secured from the attack. If it attacked again, I needed to react faster. Then, another whisper. Closer this time. I snapped my head toward the sound, just as a dark, lanky shape darted through the trees. Thin, almost skeletal. Its skin was raw, scraped and torn, drool leaking from its open maw. Then it stopped and grinned at me. Brown ape, level 0. The system identified my foe. Before I could react, it rushed forward and vanished into the trees again. I clenched my jaw, trying to think of a way to handle the situation. But I barely had time to react before it struck again, this time from the left. A streak of movement, too fast to track, then pain. Its claws raked across my left arm before I could dodge, tearing through my uniform and leaving a burning gash from my shoulder to my elbow. I staggered back, gritting my teeth, but before I could counter, it had already vanished into the trees. I turned frantically, scanning the dense foliage, my breath heavy. The whispers crept closer, slithering through the air. Then another attack. A blur from the right. I twisted my body just in time to avoid a deep wound, but its claws still scraped my right thigh before disappearing again. My arms. Then my leg. It was picking me apart piece by piece. It was toying with me. This time I was ready. I knew it would go for my left leg next. I pretended to focus on my right, keeping my breathing steady. Then, there it was. The rustle of movement, the rush of air. It came exactly as I expected. Knowing it would vanish into the trees again after striking, I had only one chance. I planted my weight on my right leg, twisted sharply to the left, and launched myself forward, slamming my shoulder into its thin, bony chest. The impact sent a shockwave through my body, but I didn't stop. I drove forward with everything I had, wrapping my arms around its midsection and slamming it straight into the ground. The creature let out a choked snarl as we crashed down, dirt and leaves exploding around us. It thrashed beneath me, its claws slashing wildly, but I didn't relent. Gritting my teeth, I fought to pin its arms down, struggling to gain control before it could slip away again. I drove my knee deeper into its gut, crushing it against the dirt as it twisted and screeched beneath me. It thrashed, its claws scraping at my arms and chest, leaving stinging cuts, but I refused to let go. With a roar, I slammed my forehead into its face. Pain exploded in my skull, but the impact sent the bastard reeling. Its shriek turned into a wet gurgle as its nose cracked under the blow. I followed up immediately. My fists smashed into its ribs again and again, relentless like a madman. Each strike sent shockwaves through its bony frame. It spasmed, but I wasn't done. I yanked back one arm and drove my elbow into its temple. Hard. The ape's head snapped to the side, but before it could react, I caught its jaw with a vicious right hook. It gagged, its breath hitching, and I took the opportunity to hammer another elbow straight down into its jaw. Its legs flailed wildly, trying to buck me off, but I locked my thighs around them, keeping it pinned. Another headbutt. Another brutal elbow. It gagged again, so I rammed my fist into its throat. Once. Twice. It choked out a gurgled screech. The only thought in my head was that I couldn't allow it to escape. I reared back, roared and drove my forehead straight into its face with a sickening crack. Its skull bounced off the dirt, but I didn't let up. With both hands, I grabbed its throat, fingers digging deep, and lifted its head before smashing it down into the ground. Again. The earth splattered with its blood, its twitching body going still, but I slammed its skull one last time just to be sure. I exhaled, my arms trembling, chest heaving. My uniform was in shreds, my skin raw with scrapes and bruises. With a heavy sigh, I collapsed beside the beast. The forest was silent. Then a strange sensation washed over me. Essence. I turned my head and watched as green particles drifted from the creature's corpse, flowing into me. Level up. Level 0, Level 1. I pulled up my status to check the new updates. Status. Name, Billion Ironheart. Race, human. Class, not applicable. Laws, not applicable. Level 1. Talent, Generator 1. Essence, 5 out of 5. Attributes, Strength 8. Constitution, 7. Dexterity, 10. Synapse, 7. And use stats, 5. I noticed I reached level 1. My essence was full again, and I had 5 in use stat points. Taking stock of my injuries and exhaustion, I allocated 3 points to Constitution and 2 to Strength, bringing them both up to 10. Then, without hesitation, I transferred the stored essence into Constitution, temporarily boosting it to 15, just enough to speed up my body's recovery. I felt the new stats taking effect. Felt my body a little bit more tougher and could feel the wounds stinging a little. Pushing myself up, I turned my gaze to the dead abomination. A brown ape. Before corruption, it must have been a strong, muscled beast covered in thick brown fur. But after a corrupted soul took over, it had become this grotesque, skeletal husk, its body reeking of decay. Now, with its death, the corrupted soul was permanently erased. I clenched my fists as my thoughts drifted to my parents. In our universe, when someone died, whether naturally or in war, their soul would drift toward the Eternals, who would attempt to forge them into living armors, the Phantoms. But if the forging failed, the soul would become corrupted, losing all reason. Those corrupted souls were then cast into different worlds, where they would infect and twist beasts into abominations. Every day, I prayed to the gods that my parents hadn't become neither phantom nor abomination. Casting one last glance at the beast, I moved forward barefoot, searching for shelter. The pain in my ankle had dulled, significantly expected, considering my constitution had nearly doubled for now. My body was working fast to recover. My uniform was in tatters, especially the upper half, but I ignored it. First aid could wait until my constitution dropped back down. No point wasting resources while my body was already healing at an accelerated rate. I moved carefully, stepping lightly to avoid making noise, my eyes scanning the forest for any signs of movement. As I walked through the forest, I felt a tingling sensation spread through my body, my updated stats at work. The pain had lessened, my muscles felt different, and the bruising on my ankle had already started to fade. I scanned my surroundings, searching for a cave, somewhere to hide for the night, preferably with a rock or something to block the entrance. Once I secured shelter, my next goal was hunting. Arcas wanted us at higher than level 12 within a month. I'd make sure to surpass that expectation. By the end of probation, I'd make good on my promise. They would be the ones chasing me. And on one thing, Arcas and I agreed, I didn't like 0-2 either. I wanted to be the best. To be in everyone's faces, always ahead. I came across a massive tree towering over the rest of the forest. Tilting my head back, I stared up. It was easily multiple times the height of the others. Deciding to take advantage of my temporarily boosted constitution, I set my bag down and started climbing, careful not to put too much strain on my ankle. My hands gripped the rough bark as I pulled myself up, branch by branch. Halfway up, I was way above the canopy. From here, I could see other trees of the same kind scattered across the forest, standing taller than the rest. Turning my gaze in every direction, I finally spotted a small hill in the distance. Beyond it, further away, stretched a mountain range. Locking the direction in my mind, I slid down the tree, grabbed my bag, and started moving toward the hill. I wondered how Steve was doing. You better survive this, Steve. I don't want to hunt down my future grandfather-in-law for throwing you in here. I smirked at the thought as I made my way toward the hill. Then, a whisper. I froze mid-step. Another whisper followed, this time from a different direction. My breath hitched. My eyes stayed locked ahead, my body rigid, unmoving. I couldn't see anyone, but I understood. There were two of them this time. I slipped the bag down and whispered, "Power up!" My heart thrummed, and I could feel the core stirring up. I stayed still, keeping my breathing slow. My eyes darted from tree to tree, scanning every inch of my surroundings. I knew this game by now. They were testing me, waiting for an opening. But this time, I wasn't the same as before. My body felt lighter, stronger. My wounds from the last fight had already faded into dull aches. My constitution had boosted my recovery, and my strength had risen. A branch creaked behind me. I spun just in time. The first ape lunged, its thin body cutting through the air like a thrown spear. Its claws shot toward my chest, but I didn't even bother dodging. Instead, I planted my feet and swung. Boom! My fist crashed into its face before it could touch me. The force of the punch sent it flipping mid-air, its grotesque form twisting like a rag doll before it crashed into a tree. I looked at it to check its level. Brown ape, level 0. The second one moved. I caught a flicker of motion in my peripheral vision and ducked. Its claws barely scraped my scalp before I drove my shoulder into its gut. Got you. Wrapping my arms around its bony waist, I lifted it clean off the ground. Its limbs flailed wildly, claws swiping at my back, but I barely felt them. With a roar, I arched backward in. Boom! A perfect suplex. The ape's head and upper chest slammed into the earth so hard that the ground trembled. It twitched, momentarily stunned. I didn't let it recover. Twisting around, I mounted it and rained down fists like a goddamn machine gun. My punches sank into its gaunt face, snapping bones, bursting flesh. Its body spasmed beneath me before finally going limp. One down. I turned, just in time to see the first one rushing at me again. It had recovered faster than expected, blood leaking from its mouth, its sunken eyes filled with rage. I looked at its wobbling form, and I charged too. Its claws lashed out, but I weaved through its strikes, dodging with ease. Then I slammed my knee into its gut, driving the air from its lungs. It doubled over, gagging. I moved behind it, grabbed its waist, and lifted. Another suplex, this time sending it headfirst into a tree trunk with a sickening crunch. It slumped over, dazed but still alive. I stepped forward, grabbed its head, and positioned it just right. Then with all the force I could muster, I drove my knee straight into its skull. A sharp crack echoed through the forest, and the creature went limp, its body twitching before finally falling still. Two dead, and I was still standing. I waited until the essence gathered toward me, then picked up my bag and continued moving toward the hill. That wasn't enough to level up. I frowned, my brows furrowing in frustration. Replaying the fight in my head, I felt I had done well. After the first battle, I realized the apes were light-footed fighters, likely with more stats in dexterity and very little in strength or constitution. That explained why they were fast but couldn't take a real hit. I kept moving cautiously for another 10 to 15 minutes before stopping beside another towering tree. Deciding to calm down my thoughts, I climbed up and settled on a thick branch. Pulling out my water bottle, I took a small sip, my mind drifting back to the sickening cracks I had heard when I drove the apes into the ground. I glanced at my knuckles, perfectly fine, aside from some crushed skin and bits of ichor still clinging to them. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. It's either them or us, Billion. With renewed determination, I opened my eyes, slid down the tree, grabbed my bag, and kept moving. After another hour of tracking, I heard shrieking and screeching up ahead. I immediately ducked behind a tree, tightening the straps of my bag before creeping toward the source of the noise. Moving carefully, I stopped behind another tree and peeked out from the side. For brown apes were tussling with what looked like stags. There were 3 stags. I narrowed my eyes and checked their levels. 3 of the apes were level 0, with the last one at level 1. 2 of the stags were level 0, while one stood out, stronger, more menacing. I focused on it. Ironhide stag, level 1. It towered at nearly 7 feet, its body covered in jagged, uneven iron plates that looked fused with its flesh, as if they had forcefully grown out of its skin rather than being natural armor. Patches of raw, exposed muscle pulse between the metal plates, leaking dark fluid. Its horns weren't just long, they were twisted and sharp, resembling rusted blades rather than bone. The apes weren't strong enough to deal any real damage to the stags, so they relied on hit-and-run tactics. They darted in, struck with quick swipes, then leaped away before the stags could retaliate. Their movements were erratic, constantly jumping between the trees, keeping their prey on edge. The level 1 ape was noticeably faster than the others. It, along with another ape, focused on the level 1 stag, circling it, forcing it to stay on the defensive. The stag lunged at them with its blade-like horns, but the apes were too quick, slipping away before the attack could connect. It was a battle of speed versus endurance, but for what I could see, the stags weren't backing down either. Watching them tear into each other, I felt the urge to jump in. If there had been fewer of them, I might have. But 7 abominations at once? That was a little out of my reach. I checked my status. The temporary boost to Constitution had worn off. Constitution, 10.5. Essence, 2 out of 5. Now, I had a decision to make. I could ignore their fight and move on, or I could get involved, outlast them, and emerge as the final winner. If I pulled it off, I might just step into level 2. I watched the abominations tear into each other, waiting patiently for them to tire out or at least thin their numbers. The level 1 stag was struggling to pin down the apes, its stamina clearly running low. 2 apes, the level 1 and a level 0, kept darting around it, their hit-and-run tactics slowly wearing it down. My focus locked onto the level 1 ape. Physically, it wasn't much different from the others, but it was faster, too fast. If I wanted my plan to work, it needed to die first. It was still uninjured, making it the hardest target to pin down. So I waited, and soon my moment came. The ape broke away from the fight, ducking behind a tree to catch its breath. Not yet. I stayed hidden. It rested for about a minute, but when it noticed the stag overpowering the other ape, it jumped back into the fight. And just like that, the shrieks and roars continued. I saw it getting tired again. This time I moved. I dropped my bag, crept closer, and climbed a tree that overlooked the fight. The ape broke away once more, panting heavily. Now, I jumped from branch to branch, moving silently, my bare feet barely making a sound. Then, standing directly above it, I took a deep breath, focused on the ape, and dived. Mid-flight, I yanked my right hand back and forced all my stored essence into it. What happened next caught me completely off guard. A violent heat surged from my heart, rushing down my arm. My entire right arm felt like it was force-fed with energy, my muscles compressing with raw strength. The sheer force of it made my veins burst, pain ripping through my arm. But I gritted my teeth and slammed my fist into the unsuspecting ape skull. Boom! Its head exploded like a crushed watermelon. I hit the ground, rolling to absorb the impact, and without wasting a second, I bolted. I ducked behind another tree, exhaling sharply, my breath heavy. Pain. My right arm throbbed, blood dripping down its entire length to my fingers. Damn it! What the hell was that? I had never expected essence to be that violent when applied directly. I had expected to knock out the ape and finish it with another 1 or 2 punches, but the effect of directly applying essence was far greater than I anticipated. I stared at my right arm. It was bloody as hell. I had transferred essence to my attributes before, but nothing like this had happened. So why was this different? Level up. Level 1 dash, level 2. Seeing the message, I grinned slightly. The pain was worth it. I held my breath and waited, ready to jump into action if any of the apes or stags noticed me. A few moments passed. No reaction. Slowly, I sneaked back to where my bag was. Opening it, I pulled out the first aid kit, grabbed some bandages, and then, gritting my teeth, yanked off my shirt. I wrapped the bandages tightly around the wounds on my right arm. The pain was horrendous. It felt like needles were stabbing me from the inside, trying to break through my skin. I peeked out and saw the level 1 stag overpowering the level 0 ape. The ape shrieked, maybe trying to call for the one I'd already killed. It barely dodged the stag's horns, then sprinted away, disappearing behind a tree. The stag lingered for a few moments, waiting, but when the ape didn't return, it turned away and rejoined the other stags in battle. Crouching low, I moved toward the hidden ape, keeping my eyes locked on the ongoing fight. As I got closer, the stench hit me, thick and rancid. Gritting my teeth, I braced myself this was going to hurt. With a sudden motion, I lunged. My left hand clamped over the ape's mouth, my right arm wrapped around its throat, and my legs locked tightly around its torso. Then, with all my strength, I yanked it backward, taking us both down. The ape thrashed wildly, its claws raking in my arms as I tightened my grip around its throat, squeezing with everything I had. It struggled harder, its body convulsing, but I refused to let go. Then, in a desperate move, its teeth sank deep into my left palm, searing pain exploding up my arm as warm blood gushed out. I gritted my teeth, refusing to scream, but at that moment, my right arm flared up in agony, the earlier damage roaring back to life. My grip wavered for a split second, but gritting my teeth, I doubled down on its throat. Finally, its movements grew sluggish, then weak, until finally, with one last twitch, its body went limp in my hold. I exhaled sharply, my whole body trembling, but I didn't loosen my grip until I was sure it was dead. Shoving the ape's lifeless body off me, I pushed myself up with a groan. My arms were covered in fresh scratches, and my right arm was practically useless now, throbbing with every movement. Then I froze. The forest had gone silent. No more shrieks. No more roars. Slowly, I lifted my head. All 3 stags and the remaining 2 apes were staring right at me. Their muscles tensed, their eyes locked onto my bloodied form. I exhaled sharply and whispered, "Power up!" My heart lurched. The core roared back to life, and I turned and bolted straight into the forest, my body instantly hitting full acceleration. Fucking hell. The essence transfer had completely screwed up my plan. My right arm flared with unbearable pain as I ran, and behind me, I could hear the beast crashing through the trees in pursuit, suddenly forgetting their own enmity. My thoughts spun as I ran, one question echoing in my mind. Would they catch me first, or would I run straight into another abomination? And in both cases, it would end in my defeat, and I didn't like that at all. There wasn't much to think about then. So I transferred all my unused stats into strength, raising it to 15, and started slowing down slightly. My body heated up from the sudden surge of power. I adjusted my stance, and the moment I heard the ape shriek, I turned and burst toward it, driving my left fist straight into its face. The impact sent it flying backward, slamming into a tree with a sickening crack. My heart burned hotter as it absorbed the energy from the collision. Skidding forward, I pivoted sharply and struck again before the ape could even flop to the ground. My fist crashed into its throat, crushing it instantly. Without wasting a second, I turned, shifted direction, and bolted once more. I could feel the bandages soaking through with blood. My right arm was getting worse with every step. Noticing that the last remaining ape wasn't leading the chase this time, I made a quick decision. I needed to avoid running straight into another abomination. So, I curved my path, circling around the same area while weaving between the trees in a tight zigzag, making sure the stags couldn't get a straight run at me. Finally, the ape moved to the front again, struggling to keep up with my pace while the stags lagged behind. That was my moment. I charged straight at it. The ape shrieked and lunged, claws stretched wide. At the last second, I slammed my feet into the ground, skidding to a stop. My bare soles scraped against the dirt as I ducked low, letting the ape sail clean over me. Spinning on my heel, I twisted and launched my leg into its head with all my strength. A sickening crack rang out as its skull caved in, the final level 0 ape dropping lifelessly to the ground. I turned to the roaring stags. They were still crashing through trees, barreling straight for me. The level 0s weren't a problem, but the level 1 was built differently. Its defense had to be somewhere between 12 and 15 points. I clenched my fists. This was going to be tough. The level 1 stag charged straight at me, and I met it head-on. It dipped its head, horns aiming for my torso, but I leaned in, slamming my left shoulder into its skull. The impact nearly stopped us both in place, a shockwave rattling through my body. My heart heated up, the core hungrily absorbing the energy. I grinned. "Give me more, little deer." Stepping back, I turned and sprinted away. The stag roared and gave chase. Once I gained some distance, I stopped, pivoted, and charged again. My left shoulder met its skull once more, another brutal impact. My entire body trembled, but the heat inside my heart surged. I glanced at my essence store. March 5th. That was enough. Without hesitation, I turned and bolted. But this time, instead of running straight, I kicked off a tree trunk, grabbed onto a branch, and climbed up, leaping between the trees. I stopped and waited, watching the beast charge toward my tree. Just as it was about to reach me, I kicked off a branch from the opposite tree, using it as a pivot to rotate midair. As I spun, I pushed 2 units of essence into my right leg. A surge of energy flooded my muscles, making them denser and more compact, like coiled steel ready to explode with power. The leg felt more powerful, and the pain flared instantly, hot and sharp, but this time I could manage it. With all my momentum, I brought my leg down in a devastating axe kick, slamming it onto the stag's back. Crack! Its spine shattered under the impact. The beast buckled, its body collapsing as the force drove it into the ground. I stood up limping. My leg hurt, not as much as the right arm, but still the essence transfer did burst some veins. I took a deep breath and turned around. Only 2 level 0 stags were left. A couple of good punches and a solid tackle later, I lay sprawled on the ground, the 2 dead stags beside me. Level up. Level 2, level 3. I guess that went well. I exhaled. I took stock of my injuries. My right arm was completely unusable, and my left leg wasn't much better. My arms and chest were covered in cuts from the apes, and my shoulder throbbed from the repeated stag collisions. Still, I raised my good hand in the air and did a tiny victory celebration. That was one of the most thrilling fights I had ever been in. I had taken down a group of 7 abominations alone. Even I could hardly believe it. Grinning through the pain, I pulled up my status screen. Status. Name, Billion Ironheart. Race, human. Class, not applicable. Laws, not applicable. Level 3. Talent, Generator 1. Essence, 2 out of 5. Attributes, Strength, 15. Constitution, 10.5. Dexterity, 10. Synapse, 7. And use stats, 5. My essence was back at 2 out of 5, and I still had 5 in use stat points. But I wasn't sure how to use them yet. I needed to come up with a strategy. What kind of fighter did I actually want to be? Our stat distribution and the experiences we went through from level 1 to level 25 determined our class options. If I wanted to focus on defense and become a tank, I'd have to invest in Constitution. If I aim to be an assassin-type fighter, I need to pump my points into dexterity. And if I wanted a class that let me control elements in battle, I'd have to increase my synapse as much as possible, then select a starting element class. Before my talent awakened, I had planned to be a frontline fighter, always in the thick of battle. I like getting my hands dirty, so my original plan was to focus on strength and dexterity and aim for a warrior-related class. But now, everything had changed. This talent introduced essence, and on top of that, it gave me extra attributes. And then there was what my grandma said. My talent was called Generator, not Essence Generator. That had to mean there was more to it than I understood. I exhaled. Too much to think about. Shakily, I pushed myself to my feet, took one last look at the dead beasts, and started limping toward my abandoned bag. After reaching it, I patched myself up with some temporary first aid, gulped down some water, and forced myself to move. My next goal was shelter, so I set off toward the hill in the distance. It took me 4 hours of tracking, avoiding a couple of apes, stags, and even a herd of stinking boars, but I finally reached the base of the hill. Along the way, I used 1.5 of my unused stats to boost my constitution to 12, hoping to speed up my recovery. I reached the base of the hill, every step sending a fresh wave of soreness through my body. The terrain was rough, uneven, with jagged rocks and thick roots twisting over the ground. I needed shelter before nightfall, but so far, I hadn't spotted any caves. Even if I did, there was always the risk of something already living inside. I wasn't in the mood for another fight. I kept moving, scanning the hillside for anything useful. After what felt like an hour of searching, I finally found what I was looking for, a cave entrance partially hidden behind a cluster of boulders. It wasn't deep, maybe 10 feet at most, but it was dry and, more importantly, empty. No bones, no foul smells, no signs of anything making this its home. Still, I didn't trust it. I climbed a nearby tree, settling into a thick branch that gave me a clear view of the entrance. If anything lived there, it would come back eventually. I just had to wait. 3 hours passed. The sun dipped lower, the shadows stretched longer, but nothing showed up. No beasts, no movement, just the quiet rustling of leaves in the wind. That was enough for me. Climbing down, I made my way back to the cave and grabbed a massive rock nearby. It was heavy, but I managed to drag it over to the entrance. With a final push, I wedged it into place, sealing myself inside. The space instantly felt tighter, the air cooler. I let out a slow breath and slumped against the wall. I slumped against the cool cave wall, letting out a long, exhausted sigh. My entire body ached like I had just been thrown from an aircraft. I glanced down at my bruises and cuts, shaking my head. There was the ankle, the right arm, the right leg, and the shoulder. "Well, Billion, you really outdid yourself today," I muttered. "First, you get jumped by a pack of abominations. Then, you nearly get turned into roadkill by a bunch of angry stags. And to top it all off, you spend 3 hours sitting in a tree like some lost bird, waiting for a cave to tell you if it's haunted or not." I rubbed my temples. "And let's not forget, you reached level 3 in a day. Yay, amazing. Except, alright, you also almost lost an arm in the process." I raised my injured arm slightly before wincing. Yep, real smooth. Truly a warrior in the making. I stared at the rock I had used to block the entrance. At least I had the genius idea to seal myself inside. If a beast does come sniffing around, it'll either think I'm not home or that I've buried myself alive. Either way, problem solved. I exhaled, letting my head rest against the wall. Tomorrow's problems are for tomorrow. Right now, I just need to not die in my sleep. Preferably. And with that, I closed my eyes, hoping I wouldn't wake up to something trying to eat me. I woke up after who knows how long, not like Arcas thought it would be nice to provide us with a watch or anything. My stomach growled, and the urge to pee hit me like a sudden revelation. I glanced down at myself, bare chest with just a necklace, ragged pants, and barefoot. "That's a beautiful look, Billion," I muttered. My injuries had dulled a lot. My ankle felt normal again, and my shoulder didn't ache anymore. My right arm and leg, the ones I nearly blew up with essence, still throbbed a little, but it was manageable. I pushed myself up and walked toward the entrance. Shifting the rock covering it just enough to peek outside, I squinted against the daylight. What? How long was I asleep? Stepping out, I covered the entrance again and scanned my surroundings. Nothing in sight. No abominations, no weird noises. I exhaled, relaxing just a little until another pressing question hit me. Okay, where the hell am I supposed to go to shit? Arcas really left out the important details. After a serious and stealthy search, I took care of some essential business and moved on with my day. I sat in my cave, eating some of the stored food. It wasn't tasty at all, but it was nutritious. Artificial stuff, smaller in quantity, but packed with energy. After finishing my food, I removed the bandages and wiped myself with a wet cloth. That reminded me, I need to find a water source in a day or two. But before that, I had to do some serious introspection on how I was going to move forward and get the best class for myself. I wanted a class that complemented my talent, something that would help with essence utilization and control. Using it directly was a double-edged sword. To move in a direction where I'd be offered anything related to essence, I needed to understand it better and start using it more and more in fights. I checked my essence store. 3/5. One more unit had increased by the end of the fight. I sat cross-legged and closed my eyes, trying to calm my thoughts. The thing with me was that it was always difficult to quiet my mind. My brain just couldn't stay still. I let my thoughts drift for a minute or two before focusing on my heart, tuning in to its steady rhythm. I was trying to find where the heat I felt was building up. I recalled the sensation of essence traveling from my heart to my arm and leg when I used it. I kept my focus on my heartbeat. Some time passed, and I started to sense something other than the beat, but I couldn't quite place it. I held on, pushing through for another 10, maybe 15 minutes, but it led nowhere. With a heavy exhale, I opened my eyes. This was proving more difficult than I thought. So, I did the next best thing. I dumped all my unused stats into Synapse, bringing it up to 10.5. The moment my Synapse hit 10.5, my mind felt clearer. Not overwhelmingly so, but like a fog had thinned just enough to let me see further. I hadn't even closed my eyes, yet I could tell something was different. I glanced around the cave. Everything looked the same, but my awareness of it felt sharper. The subtle details, the rough texture of the rock, the way light seeped through the cracks stood out just a little more. My thoughts, which usually bounced around like an untrained beast, felt little more ordered, easier to follow. I closed my eyes and tried again. This time, it was clearer. I could feel the essence stored there, like a tiny ember hidden in the center of my heart, glowing faintly but not yet strong enough to ignite. I kept my focus on it, observing. It flickered and rolled around, restless yet contained within my heart. I decided to see if I could control it. I mentally tried to nudge it, to move it around, but I couldn't get a hold of it. I tried multiple times, but nothing worked. So I switched tactics. I added 1 unit of stored essence to Synapse, while keeping my focus on the essence in my heart, trying to figure out what would happen. I watched as the essence roiled once. Then a chunk of it separated and shot out of my heart, completely escaping my senses. That was fast. I barely felt the increased effect of Synapse, but I decided to give it another shot. Again, I added 1 more unit of essence to Synapse and observed as the essence roiled, separated, and zoomed out once more. Still, I couldn't track it. I guess there's only one option left. Gritting my teeth, I activated Essence Infusion and infused the last remaining unit of essence into my right leg. I braced for the pain and focused, watching the essence surge toward my leg. I watched as the essence forcefully pushed its way through my blood, rushing toward my leg like an uncontrolled flood. Along the way, several veins burst, sending sharp jolts of pain through me. But despite that, I could feel it. My right leg was stronger now. That gave me some ideas on how I might be able to control it, but for now, I was out of essence to experiment with. Still, this experiment confirmed one thing for me. I wanted to be a strength-based fighter, and since I had to rely on essence, strength and synapse would be the primary attributes I needed to focus on. Every day, I needed to set aside some time to experiment with essence. No excuses. I exhaled and got up, wrapping some bandages around my leg to stop the bleeding. It was already aching, but nothing I couldn't handle. After securing it, I decided it was time to explore the area around my new home. Arcas had only given us one directive. We needed to reach at least level 12. That meant the race was on. How far we could push ourselves depended entirely on our ability to survive and create opportunities for ourselves. Sitting around and hoping for progress wasn't an option. So, I needed a routine. I walked over to the cave wall, picked up a stone, and began engraving a plan into the rock. 1 hour of punching and kicking. 2 hours of essence training. 1 hour of combat drills. Leveling up and exploration. I paused, looking at my list. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. If I wanted to get stronger, I needed to be disciplined. All right, I muttered to myself, tossing the stone aside. Time to get to work. I rolled my shoulder, stretched a little, and stood in front of the wall in nothing but my torn military pants. Getting into position, I started punching, making sure to control the force behind each strike. Leveling up was great, but getting used to my increased strength and using it efficiently was even more important. My fists smashed into the wall over and over, creating a neat row of dents. After about half an hour, I switched to practicing kicks, feeling out my balance and power. And just like that, I lost myself in the routine. 5 days had passed since I started my routine, 6 days in total since Arcas had randomly dropped us here to die. I wonder what the old man was doing right now. Probably sipping tea, watching us struggle to survive, and laughing at the thought of us shitting in the wild. In the past 5 days, I had located a water source, one of the rivers, but I hadn't found anyone else from my unit. My self-training had been going well, especially the essence training. Every day, I infused essence into my right leg, let it wreck some part of it, and observed how the damage played out. At this point, I was pretty sure my right leg was screaming discrimination. And no, I wasn't a masochist. The reason I focused only on my right leg was to see if repeatedly exposing it to essence would lead to any long-term changes. But with such a small amount of essence, the experiment would take time before showing any results. Until then, my right leg would just have to deal with it. I stood on a thick tree branch, peering down at my next prey. Below me, a massive bear, nearly 8 feet tall, tore into its breakfast. Jagged bones jutted out from its head and shoulders, giving it a nightmarish appearance. As I focused on it, its level popped up. Skulled bear, level 8. I thought we were dropped into a low-level area, which made finding abominations above level 5 a rare challenge. Most of my hunts so far had been against low-level brown apes and boars, hardly satisfying. I first spotted the bear yesterday and have been tracking it since then. Now, after reaching level 7, I finally decided to take my shot. Before making a move, I pulled up my status screen to check my progress. Status. Name, Billion Ironheart. Race, human. Class, not applicable. Laws, not applicable. Level, 7. Talent, Generator 1. Essence, 5 out of 5. Attributes, Strength, 21.5. Constitution, 16.5. Dexterity, 15.5. Synapse, 18.2. Unused stats, 0. I was satisfied with my progress. Most of my unused stats had gone into strength and synapse, while I used my stored essence to boost constitution and dexterity so that they wouldn't lag too far behind. Satisfied, I pulled up my talent panel to check how much more essence I needed to level up Generator. Talent. Talent name, Generator. Function, generates essence from absorbed energy. Level 1, essence, 5/5 units. Level up requirement, 100 units of essence generated. Progress, 67 out of 100. Talent upgrade requirement, talent level 5. Generator activation command, power up, recharge sources, any form of energy. Abilities, essence transfer, can transfer stored essence to an attribute. After use, 10% of the transferred essence unit remains as a permanent boost. Essence infusion, can infuse stored essence. I noticed it had reached 67, and if things went well, I'd probably cross the threshold in another 3 or 4 days. After dealing with the bear, I planned to move to a new area. My confidence to deal with the bear came from having a fully charged essence storage, ready to be unleashed. I dropped down from the tree. My pants were barely shorts at this point, and no shoes, no shirt. Rolling my shoulders, I did a couple of squats and slapped my cheeks to jolt myself fully awake. Time to beat the shit out of this dude. I cupped my hands around my mouth and shouted at the bear. Hey, Dumbo, look who's here. The bear raised its head, then slowly turned around. Its eyes locked onto me, and with a deep growl, it smashed the ground with its front paws. I grinned. Oh, excited are we? Me too, brother, me too. Hunting those boars was getting boring. I raised a finger at the bear. But I'm sorry for what I'm about to do to you. Then I sprinted forward. The bear let out a thunderous roar and rumbled toward me. Rising onto its hind legs, it swiped a massive paw in my direction. My focus zeroed in on the beast. With my increased synapse, the world around me slowed down a little. I took a deep breath, braced for impact, and crossed my arms just as the bear's paw smashed into them. Boom! I skidded nearly 8 feet before coming to a stop. My forearms throbbed from the hit, and I shook out my hands to get rid of the jitters. Wow, man, you got some juice in you. The bear roared even louder and charged again, this time lunging at me with its jaws wide open. I lunged too, ducking low and slamming my shoulder into its chest. The beast stumbled back, then flopped onto the ground. I did a disappointed head shake. Come on, we're just getting started. I was really starting to enjoy the benefits of synapse. My mind was working at an insane speed, processing information at a much higher rate. I could see the tiny twitches in the bear's muscles, almost predicting its next move before it even made it. Without hesitation, I transferred all 5 units of essence into Constitution, increasing it to 21.5. Immediately, I felt my body changing. Every time an attribute crossed a multiple of 10, the transformations were significant, and this was no exception. I watched as the bear clambered back onto its feet. Looking at the bear, I shouted in an exaggerated tone, "Power up!" I felt my heart thrum as the generator kicked into action, and I charged first. The bear swiped at me again, but I stood my ground, crossing my arms to take the blow head-on. This time, I didn't budge. My feet dug into the dirt, absorbing the force, and I grinned. My heart pounded as I watched the heat build up in the core. I exhaled sharply, planting my feet firmly into the dirt. No more blocking. No more sidestepping. This time, I was going to take it all. The bear roared, its breath hot and foul, before lunging again. It swiped with one massive paw, aiming straight for my ribs. I clenched my jaw and braced. Boom! The impact sent a shockwave through my body, but instead of crumpling, I held my ground. My muscles strained, my bones groaned, but I didn't break. The force spread through my body instead of concentrating in one place. My constitution had finally caught up to my strength. The bear wasn't done. It followed up with another swipe, this time smashing into my shoulder. My body twisted from the force, my feet dragging across the ground, but I didn't fall. Pain flared, but it wasn't sharp. It was dull, heavy, manageable. I grinned. That's all you got. The bear growled and reared up on its hind legs before bringing both its paws down in a hammer strike. I crossed my arms over my head and bam. My knees bent slightly. The ground beneath me cracked, but I stayed upright. My heart pounded like a war drum, my generator talent roaring to life. I felt the heat surge in my core. Every hit made my body tougher, stronger. My constitution firing up to recover the damage and provide strength. The bear's strikes still hurt, but they didn't overwhelm me anymore. I could read its movements, anticipate the blows, absorb them. My synapse processed everything in high detail, the twitch of its muscles, the shift of its weight before each attack. I took another swipe to the ribs, another to the thigh. My body bent, but didn't break. My breathing was steady, controlled. The bear took a step back, huffing, confused. It expected me to crumble, but I was still standing. I rolled my shoulders, feeling the deep warmth of essence building inside me again. My core had been running at full speed, and now it was nearly fully charged. I exhaled and smirked. My turn. Like a bull, I smashed my foot into the ground and sprinted toward the beast. I leaped, twisted midair, and my leg shot forward, slamming into its shoulder with full force. The impact sent the bear crashing into a tree, the bone plate on its shoulder shattering like brittle stone. I landed smoothly, rolling my ankle a little, then bounced lightly on the balls of my feet, shifting my weight from left to right in a steady rhythm. Yeah, that felt good. Come on, big guy. Let's end it in one move. Although I had no system skill at the moment, I still wanted to end this fight with a finisher or a signature move. Why, you ask? Because I liked finishers. The bear roared and charged, tearing through the ground like a freight train. I exhaled, keeping my stance low, eyes locked onto its movements. At the last second, I sidestepped, barely grazing past its lunging form. As it barreled past, I planted a foot on its back and launched myself into the air, using its own momentum against it. The world slowed for a moment as I reached the peak of my jump. My leg tensed, muscles coiling like a spring. I swung my leg down, an axe kick aimed right at the center of its skull. Boom! My heel crashed into its head like a war hammer. The force sent a shock wave through its body, smashing its skull plate into shards and driving its head into the dirt. The ground beneath us cracked from the impact. The bear twitched once, then fell completely still. I landed smoothly, rolling my shoulders as I took a deep breath. I looked at the bear. Thank you, big guy. May your corrupted soul rest in peace. With that, I turned and made my way back to my shelter. It was finally time to complete my essence experiment. I had accumulated enough in used stats to push Synapse past 20, and I was certain it would help me manipulate essence, even if just a little. Reaching my shelter, I gulped down some water and sat cross-legged on the ground. I distributed all my unused stats, increasing Synapse to 21.2 and Strength to 23.5. Closing my eyes, I calmed my thoughts and focused on my heart. This time, everything felt smoother and clearer, thanks to the increased Synapse. The green flames of essence roiled at the center of my heart. I observed them in silence for a good 10 to 15 minutes, studying every flicker and swirl. Then, bringing my full attention to the flame, I gave a nudge. It moved. I nudged again, and it responded once more. A slow grin spread across my face as I realized I was finally getting somewhere. I attempted something new, separating a tiny chunk of essence from the main flame. I pulled out a fragment, smaller than even a single unit, and guided it toward my right hand. I could feel it traveling through my arm, strengthening it as it passed. Forearm, wrist, fingers. It spread like a controlled fire, fueling my muscles instead of overwhelming them. Opening my eyes, I clenched my fist, feeling the raw power surging through it. No pain, no damage, just strength. By taking only a minuscule portion of essence, I had finally found a way to control it without tearing myself apart. On top of that, my increased constitution helped mitigate the damage. Suddenly, a system message flashed before my eyes. Innate skill acquired. Essence manipulation, level 1. I focused on the message to read the details. Innate skill. A skill awakened through a person's unique talent, directly tied to their talent's abilities. These skills cannot be learned or taught, only unlocked through talent progression and mastery. Essence manipulation. Innate skill, the ability to control, shape, and channel essence. I smiled. Now, that's more like it. I hadn't even known there was something like innate skills in the system. Nothing in our education had ever mentioned them. So, is this a secret only for those with talents? The chances of that seemed high. Since only a few people awaken talents, and most of them kept their abilities under wraps, this kind of information probably wasn't public knowledge. I pulled up my status. Name, Billion Ironheart. Race, human. Class, not applicable. Laws, not applicable. Level 8. Talent, Generator 1. Essence, 4.5/5. Attributes, Strength, 23.5. Constitution, 17. Dexterity, 15.5. Synapse, 21.2. Unused stats, 0. Skills, Essence manipulation, innate, level 1. I noticed that my essence store now showed 4.5, meaning I had successfully separated 0.5 from the total. Wanting to test the effect of my new skill, I closed my eyes and manipulated the essence again. This time, it moved even more smoothly, flowing into my other hand in a single, effortless motion. A satisfied grin spread across my face. It felt good to see my efforts pay off. After spending a few more minutes playing with the skill and testing its effects, I stood up, stretched, and made my decision. I was done here. It was time to move on. I picked up my bag and stepped out of the cave. Based on my exploration so far, I had 2 possible directions to go. One led to a vast mountain range, while the other stretched into a flat forest. A river flowed from the mountains and wound its way through the forest. I chose the mountains. Caves were plentiful there, making them perfect shelters for my essence training. With that decision made, I started walking. My awareness of my surroundings had improved significantly compared to when I was first dropped here. The increase in Synapse helped a lot. I was already level 8, and my goal was to hit level 10 within next 2 days. If things went well, I wanted to push for level 20 before the month was up, but that all depended on whether I could find strong enough abominations to fight. If there weren't any high-level abominations around, then I'd grind my way up against weaker ones. I'd scour the entire forest if I had to. And on top of that, I needed to gather as much energy as possible to level up Generator. I strapped my bag tightly and set off toward my next destination. Steve's POV. I lay sprawled beside the rotting corpse of an ashen wolf. Fur eyes, jagged teeth, and a stench so foul it forced my eyes open. An impressive feat, considering I prided myself on keeping a straight face, even while dragging around a friend who was basically a walking bomb. Pushing myself up, I dusted off and made my way back to my shelter, a large tree with thick branches. I had hoped this fight would push me to the next level, but it seemed I needed one more. I was already level 6, even though I had a bad start. Normally, I take a break after reaching the threshold, but that green-eyed menace just had to awaken a talent. I exhaled, my shoulders slumping. I still remember the day I met that human disaster. I used to be a lazy, introverted kid, content to daydream indoors and avoid people. My dad insisted I play outside for at least 2 hours, so I'd go to the playground, jog a little, rub some dirt on my clothes, and call it a day. One afternoon, while sitting near the bars, blending into the background as usual, I noticed a boy arguing with a group of 5 or 6 kids. After a heated exchange, he walked away, straight toward me. He was my height, with brown hair, green eyes, and way too much energy for my liking. He reached my spot, gave me a glance, smiled, and ignored me. Perfect. I liked being ignored. Then, without a word, he climbed the bars, dropped down, and started doing pull-ups, loudly counting each rep. He kept going for 15 minutes before landing, panting. Out of nowhere, he walked up to me, extended a hand, and said, "Hi, my name's Billion. What's yours?" And just like that, he walked me home. The next morning, he was ringing my doorbell. From then on, he showed up at the playground every single day, always talking, even when I stayed silent. I never realized when I stopped being just an observer and became his friend, then somehow got promoted to best friend. When I was around 10 or 11, I had asked him why he even liked being my friend. His answer? I was a good listener and never shooed him away. Well, he wasn't wrong. Shooing people away wasn't how introverts worked. Our main weapon was ignoring and moving on. But how do you deal with someone who refuses to be ignored? Someone always in your face, always talking? I had no idea. And before I even realized it, I started changing. As still introverted and lazy, but not around him. I started training not to surpass him. That was impossible for someone like me with zero ambition, but to make sure I didn't fall too far behind. I found the perfect balance, working just hard enough to keep him in my sight, no matter how high he climbed. And that's how I ended up in 4th place while he took 1st. But the gap between 1st and 2nd was so massive that no one even mentioned it, just to avoid discouraging the others. I never cared about fighting the Eternals. I believed resistance was pointless. In the end, we'd all be crushed, our souls captured. But Billion? He believed he could break through their chains. So, I made myself a promise. If he ever stood at the edge of that cage, ready to shatter it, I'd be right behind him, watching him do it. Billion's POV. I moved through the forest, heading toward the mountain range, keeping my awareness sharp for any abominations. It didn't take long before I spotted one. A boneplate lizard lazily meandering in my direction. Boneplate lizard, level 4. Its bones were mostly exposed, and its muscles had rotted in several places. Looking at it, I felt a twinge of pity. I wondered how much pain it must have been in, considering its condition. Let me help you move on from this life of pain. I sprinted toward it, and only then did it finally notice me. With a guttural growl, it crawled forward before lunging, jaws wide open. I saw it coming almost in slow motion. Sidestepping at the last moment, I rotated and drove my foot into its midsection, sending it smashing through multiple trees. It only came to a stop after crashing through the 3rd one. I walked toward it and stomped its head, silencing it forever. I sighed at the beast's condition before moving on. It was then that I heard a ringing. Traying. The communicator Arcas had given us was ringing. I pulled it out of my bag and answered. Vice Commander June's voice came through the speaker. "Hello, everyone. This is your Vice Commander, June, speaking. I hope you're enjoying your stay at 02. I scoffed. Enjoying? Were we really enjoying this? She continued, her tone light but firm. Since today marks the start of the 7th day, get ready to receive your first official command of the month. It will be referred to as Command 01. I straightened, listening closely. The commander has noticed that most of you are sticking to hunting stragglers and low-level targets. Your leveling speed has dropped significantly. So, he's initiating a new hunt. A new hunt? That sounded interesting. He has placed checkpoints throughout the forest. Each checkpoint has its own domain and type of abomination. There are 2 levels of checkpoints, blue and gold. Gold is more dangerous but offers greater rewards. A signal will be released once to reveal their locations. At each checkpoint, a reward will be waiting, but these rewards attract abominations. If you want them, you'll have to fight for them. And at every checkpoint, you'll find a map showing the locations of the nearest checkpoints. So, the more checkpoints you clear, the better your chances of obtaining the grand reward. She paused for a moment before adding, "Oh, and to keep things interesting, we'll be projecting the current level rankings of all of you. Just look up." And finally, Command 01 will remain active for the next 6 days, and you will receive your next instructions on the 13th day. Give it your best. With that, the communicator beeped, and the call ended. I looked up but saw nothing. Frowning, I quickly climbed a tree for a better view. As I reached the top, my eyes locked onto a massive, floating cube high in the sky, slowly rotating. It was a projector displaying information for everyone to see. On all of its sides, the level rankings were displayed. Before I could take a closer look, crimson beams suddenly flared across the forest, piercing through the trees in multiple directions. That must be the checkpoint signal she was talking about. I quickly scanned my surroundings and noticed that the closest beam was already in the direction I was headed. Making a mental note of its location, I turned my attention back to the rankings. The top 10 names were listed. Level rankings. 1. Billion Ironheart, level 8. 2. Mark Salt, level 6. 3. Sarah Gibson, level 6. 4. King Holt, level 6. 5. North Winter, level 6. 6. 7. 8. 9. Steve Harper, level 6. 10. I was surprised by seeing the list. Whoa, I thought I had pulled ahead. Looks like the others aren't slacking off either. I scanned the rankings and found Steve at 9th place and North at 5th. Since they were all at level 6, I figured the ranking was based on who reached the level first. As for me, I was at level 8 because my talent let me temporarily boost my stats by 5 units, the equivalent of an entire level's worth of unused stat points. Also, since I was a hard-working masochist, I grinned. Well, I can't let these guys pull ahead of me. Wasting no time, I decided to head straight for the checkpoint and see what it was all about. I set off toward the direction where I had seen the crimson signal. After 2 more hours of tracking and taking down 2 more abominations, I reached a clearing. Deciding it was time for a break, I climbed a sturdy tree and settled onto a thick branch to have breakfast. While eating my light, totally rubbish excuse for a meal, a makeshift sandwich, I heard noise up ahead. Squinting at the tree line, I spotted a boy running, limping, and panting heavily. His left leg was heavily bandaged, as was his forehead. Behind him, a pack of 8 to 10 hounds gave chase. Well, talk about bad luck. I scanned them. Burst hounds, all below level 6. And the boy, Logan Cross, level 3. The guy pushed himself harder, trying to create some distance, but at this rate, he had maybe 30 seconds before he either died or Arcus bailed him out somehow. Can't trust that bald guy to do anything correctly. I held the sandwich into my mouth, wiped my hands, and dropped from the tree. Then I sprinted. The boy's eyes lit up the moment he saw me charging toward him. He glanced back, saw the hounds closing in, and forced his injured leg to move faster. I could see the pain all over his face. I sped up and vaulted over his head, landing between him and the hounds. Pulling the sandwich from my mouth, I spoke. "Keep running." The guy nodded and hobbled forward. I took another bite, chewing as I glanced at the dumb beasts. "You better not ruin my food." Just as I swallowed the first bite, the leading hound lunged, jaws wide open. I exhaled through my nose, shifting my weight just enough to let the hound's snapping jaws sail past my face. Then I smashed my elbow down on its skull. Crack! The hound's body hit the ground in a twitching mess. I took another bite of my sandwich. Ugh, this bread is dry as hell. Another hound lunged. I pivoted, slamming a backhand into its ribs. The impact sent it skidding across the dirt, rolling like a discarded sack of meat. Two more came at me from opposite sides. One went for my leg, the other for my throat. I hopped back, letting the first one's jaws snap at empty air, then kicked it in the snout mid-turn. My foot sank into its face like I was punting a rotten log. The second hound, still mid-air, was an easy target. I reached out, grabbed its neck, and slammed it straight into the ground. Another bite. And this cheese? What the hell is this? Powdered milk garbage. For left. One circled to my back, but I didn't even turn. As soon as I felt it move, I threw my half-eaten sandwich straight up, bent forward, and mule-kicked behind me. My heel caught its lower jaw, snapping it clean off. The hound hit the ground with a gargling yelp. I reached up, caught the sandwich mid-air, and took another bite. One of the remaining three hesitated, but the other two charged. I sighed. Fine, I'll finish this before my last bite. The first reached me, and I smashed my fist through its skull without stopping. The second tried to swerve around, but I was already moving. I grabbed its tail, swung it like a club, and bashed it against the hesitant one. Their bodies crumpled into a heap. Last bite. I dusted my hands off, chewed, swallowed, then glanced down at the twitching remains. Damn it, even bad food tastes good when you're fighting. I turned my head. The boy was staring at me, eyes wide. I smirked. Told you to keep running. The boy exhaled loudly and collapsed onto the ground. Fuck, I thought it was over for me, he muttered. I called for help from the commander or vice commander, but nothing happened. He looked up at me and forced a tired smile. Thanks, Billion. I gave him a small nod. No problem. But they really didn't come to help even after you contacted them? That's weird. I asked. Yeah, my landing was terrible. I fractured my leg in 2 places and broke my arm. Just getting my first kill was hell, and it was only a damn hound. I barely survived. Used up all my unused stats and constitution just to stay standing. He paused, his gaze shifting to the pile of dead hounds, then back to me. But looking at you now, it feels like we'll all be chasing after you soon, just like you said on the stage. I let out a short laugh. Well, that's the plan. I turned to grab my first aid kit from my bag. Wait here. I'll patch you up. After patching Logan up and giving him some food, I sat down and asked him about his past few days. He was level 3, and his entire area was infested with hounds. They were relentless trackers, too good at sniffing him out, and always moved in packs. Most of his time had been spent recovering, hiding, and picking off lone stragglers whenever he could. But he had one interesting piece of information. You're sure you saw a level 10 hound? I asked. Yeah, no doubt about it. There's no way I'd mistake its level, he said firmly. It was massive, almost 5 feet tall, built like a tank. Probably a strength-focused abomination. And it wasn't alone. Had at least 5, maybe 10 other hounds around it when I saw it. I leaned forward slightly. Where did you see it? He hesitated. Well, I had been hiding in my spot when the communicator suddenly rang. Loudly. The sharp sound immediately drew the attention of the hounds. Cursing under my breath, I took off running. As I sprinted through the trees, I spotted a giant hound joining the pack, locking onto me as its next target. But just before it could close the distance, the crimson signals flared across the forest. In an instant, the giant hound and most of the others abandoned the chase, drawn toward the new disturbance. I remember the spot, but I'm telling you, it's dangerous. You really think you can take it on? I winked at him. Not sure, but I'll figure something out. Logan stayed silent for a few moments before speaking up. Can I come with you? I'll handle the stragglers, level 3 or 4, and guide you properly to the spot. I shrugged. Fine by me. It'll help you recover faster if you level up and put some stats in a constitution. Logan nodded in agreement. We rested for half an hour before I picked up my bag, and we set off toward the level 10 hound. Did you come across anyone else from our unit? I asked as we walked. No, I haven't. I think we all landed pretty far apart, he replied. Yeah, seems like it, I muttered. So you're from the capital? I asked. Yeah, but you don't seem arrogant. My experience with capital kids hasn't been great. He laughed. Of course, there are plenty of those guys, but that's mostly if they come from strong families or rank high in the capital academies. I'm neither. I studied at a capital academy, but my rank fluctuated between 10 and 15. He paused before continuing. And after watching what you did to those hounds, or just looking at your body, anyone would think twice before acting arrogant. My body? I raised an eyebrow. Yeah, you're shredded. Strong, fast, it's obvious. Thanks, man. By the way, do you know anything about the Winter family from the capital? Logan chuckled. Let me guess, you want to ask about North Winter? Yeah, you got me. So, I asked expectantly. I know about them. I've seen North multiple times at capital events. She has an older brother, a best friend named Sarah, and two other guys who are always trying to hit on her. She ranks somewhere between 3rd and 5th in her academy, so she's strong. Oh, and our commander? He's her grandfather. As for the Winter family, they're a line of elemental warriors specializing in wind manipulation, mainly using swords in combat. Sounds cool. So what kind of girl is she? Logan looked me up and down. Man, are you seriously thinking of going for her? Yeah, like this. I glanced down at myself and realized. Plan change. First, we find a river. I need a bath. Logan burst out laughing, and we slightly adjusted our course. We traveled for a couple of hours through the forest, encountering several hounds along the way. I took care of the stronger ones, while Logan handled the weaker ones, gradually improving his combat skills. Eventually, he managed to reach level 4. When we finally arrived at the river, I wasted no time stripping down and stepping into the water. The cool rush against my skin was a welcome relief after days of nonstop fighting. My reasoning was simple. If by some chance I ran into North, I didn't want my first impression to be ruined by looking and smelling like a wild beast. After thoroughly scrubbing myself clean, I wore new uniform, checked my necklace, settled on the riverbank, and spent an hour training my essence, moving a small chunk of it through my body. My goal was straightforward. I needed an essence-based attack that wouldn't damage me upon use. If I wanted my future class options to be centered around essence, I had to start integrating it into my combat style as much as possible. As I trained, my mind drifted to Steve. I hoped he was leveling up quickly. If the commander hadn't responded to Logan's distress call, then something was definitely at play here. And what was the purpose of these rewards and gifts? No details had been mentioned in the communication. Something about Arca's plan didn't add up. We started walking again, heading toward the area where Logan had spotted the level 10 hound and the closest checkpoint. So what kind of girl is North? I asked. Logan rubbed his chin, thinking, I mean, I've only seen her in public, and she seemed kind and down-to-earth, despite coming from the Winter family. Kind is good, I replied. Yeah, but I'm not sure how she is in real life. Everyone looks kind and humble in public, you know. Well, that's true, I admitted. We continued walking through the forest, talking as we made our way closer to the mountain range. Finally, we spotted some signs that clearly indicated the presence of a larger abomination. I think we're close, Logan said, his tone serious. I nodded and slowed my pace. Handing my bag to Logan, a massive, black, rugged pillar stood about 30 to 40 feet high, crackling with flickering golden lightning. At its peak, a cage hung, containing a glowing blue glass core. But that wasn't the shocking part. What really caught me off guard was the message nailed to the pillar, scrawled in the worst handwriting I had ever seen. This is a gift from me to motivate you kids. Gather as many as you can and enjoy the rewards. Oh, and this gift attracts abominations, so be careful. It was signed by Arcas. Talk about being dramatic. I scoffed. I had so many questions. What exactly was this gift? What did it do? How to use it? I shook my head in disappointment. There was only one thing left to do: gather these glass cores and see for myself. I watched as the beast tried to crawl up the pillar, only to be zapped by the crackling lightning. But their numbers were steadily growing. There were already around 30 of them, and more kept coming. What was Arcas thinking? Retrieving the glass core alone seemed almost impossible without help from other unit members. Did he want us to group up, attack together, and then retrieve the core? Or was there something else to it? Did he want us to go solo and push ourselves to the limit? Well, I honestly didn't care what the guy was thinking. If there was something to gain and it would make me stronger, Then I was going for it.